Welcome, everybody.
I know it seems like everything that we have dreamed is a lie. The people fighting in the streets and all the tears we have find. It seems like everywhere we look, it's getting harder to find. So hope of turning this around. But if we listen deeper, we will hear another call. People everywhere ready to change it all. We can bring heaven to
Come on, get some energy.
can heal everything that we've been through. If we see that everyone has worked, we can make a world that works for me and you. Heaven on earth
Welcome, everybody.
can bring heaven to earth. What we'll see.
All right. How are we all doing today? Welcome. So I just want to welcome you to this first segment of News from the Real World. What's really happening behind the headlines. And what I'm going to try to begin to do today, and help you to do is decode the deeper meaning behind the scene. And that's spelled SEEN. And the deeper story that's trying to emerge amidst the chaos, the message in the mess, the wisdom in our wounds, the purpose in our pain and our biggest problems, not just personally, but in the world as a mirror to help you more quickly and more deeply discover your own. Now, most of you here know who I am. I'm Derek Rydall, human evolution coach, best-selling author of the books Emergence, The Abundance Project, and my latest, A Whole New Human, right here. Get it now. There's a lot of special bonuses that come with it. But basically, it's A Whole New Human, 10 Ways We Must Evolve to Survive and Thrive in the AI Age. Now, this conversation is an experiment. I'm doing it for two reasons. One, we need to find a way to interpret what's happening in the world and ultimately with ourselves in a way that inspires, uplifts, or at least motivates us to make real, positive, and lasting change. Not just from fear, although that can have its place, and we'll talk about that, but from a greater place of agency and empowerment, which the news and the media is not designed to do and doesn't do for us. Otherwise, we're going to continue to fight limited belief against limited belief. As my mentor, Michael Beckwith, says, it becomes the friction of the fictions. And you'll understand more of that as we go along here. But if we're just fighting limited belief against limited belief, we will destroy ourselves with these old stories that no longer serve us. Or as Einstein said, we can't solve a problem at the level of thinking that created it. Put another way, we can't solve the problem that is part of an old story while we're still stuck in the story. Okay? Now, the second reason is that the better you get at reading the deeper meaning behind the headlines, the order that's trying to emerge in the seeming chaos, which there's a word for it, it's called chaotic. The better you're able to do that, the better you're able to position yourself to make a real difference, to add real value with your life, your work, and to live on the evolutionary edge of your own purpose and unfoldment. As Paul said in the Bible, be not conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I would say by the renewing of your story. Or as, again, one of my mentors, Michael Beckwith, said, you're not here to merely save the world or even to save yourself. You're here to serve what's emerging. Now, as I've been saying in recent months, we're not citizens of this world as it appears. And the appearance of this world is not the real world. It's not even close. We are ambassadors from the real world, from another place, a place within us right? Maybe for some of you, a different planet. Okay. But it's a place within us, a place in consciousness. And I know that might sound esoteric to some of you, probably not most of you here, maybe impractical right now when you're trying to pay your rent or get rid of your back pain. But over time, hopefully you're going to see this is the most practical place to live from. This understanding, this premise that we are not citizens of this world. And it's ultimately the only place from which you can truly become the creator of your reality in a world that is changing faster than we've actually evolved to adapt to. Now, I'll say more about this, but I want to back up, for a moment before we dive into what's the deeper meaning behind the headlines, behind the appearance, behind the scene, SEEN, and just speak about a couple basic principles. We're going to have time today. I want to hear your questions, post in the chat, post your responses. Be spiritual, be raw, be real. It doesn't matter. I really need your feedback, and we'll have some time to go through that. But I want to talk about the basic principles of agency and sovereignty, which is what this is ultimately about. Sovereignty, becoming the sovereign of your life again, the king and the queen, the god and the goddess, and reclaiming your power. So it's absolutely essential that we reclaim our sovereignty and our agency if we're going to stop being victims of this world or the conditions and become the creator of it. Would you agree? Does that make sense? And on the most basic level, you have two places you can focus your attention. You can focus it on your circle of concern, which is, what the world and the media is constantly trying to get you to do, or your circle of influence. Now, your circle of concern is all the things you can't do anything about, or at least you feel powerless. And that leads to fear, to complaining, to gossiping, to angry tweeting, to trolling, and to collapsing and pulling back into an ever smaller world, making you a victim. We see it everywhere. The algorithms are designed to hijack your limbic system and get you in reaction mode, which can actually feel quote unquote good. Like it feels better to be angry, to be pissed off, even vengeful, than scared and depressed. From an evolutionary standpoint, emotionally, when I'm working with somebody and they're depressed, depression is close to death. I want to get them angry and then maybe even vengeful. And you eventually work your way up. But the algorithms and media is not designed to work you up the ladder. It's designed to keep you stuck at reaction mode, right? And the second thing is the circle of influence. So that's the circle of concern. And the more you focus on the circle of concern, the smaller your influence gets and the more angry or anxious or depressed you become. Now, the circle of influence is the place you feel you have some control. You have some agency, some ability to do something about it. As the serenity prayer goes, some of you may know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's the circle of concern. And the wisdom, to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. That's the circle of influence. And the wisdom to know the difference. Like just that alone, if we actually abided by it, would make a very big difference. But that's just the beginning. Now, again, the more you focus on your circle of concern, which again, why I'm doing this and why I'm doing it here on YouTube is everywhere else around where you're looking on YouTube and probably in your feed about what to watch next and in the news, et cetera, it's a constant feed to get you to focus on your circle of concern so that you can feel mad, you can feel sad, you can feel bad, you can be on a team. It activates all this survival energy again that can make you feel more energized at times. And it's a complete and total waste of time. But it's designed to do that because it gets you to click. It gets you to stay engaged. It gets you to keep, the scroll of doom going. And understand that at the base level, we are powerless against that until we get what we're going to talk about today. We get sucked in, we get hooked. We think it's valid and valuable. Well, I should know about the war here or the racism there or the sexism there or the Epstein files over here or the fill in the blank conspiracy over there. I mean, like, no, this is important. I should know about this so I can do something about it. But what do you really do about it? What can you really do about it? I should be over here looking at all the bad things Trump's doing and over here looking at all the bad things the Democrats are doing, whatever the case. It feels like you're doing something. But what you're doing is you're in the matrix, and the matrix is sucking the life force out of you to fuel the machine. Okay, we'll get more into this, but basically understand that the more you focus on your circle of concern, the more concern, fear, and powerless grows, anger, depression, anxiety, and lack. And the more your circle of influence shrinks, it even atrophies. You have less ability to do anything about it. You have less ability to do about more and more. You understand? But including the things you used to have an ability to do something about, that atrophies. But the more you focus on your circle of influence, no matter how small it may seem, the more your circle of influence grows. You have more agency, inspiration, creativity. Like, just a quick little silly example. You want to exercise and work out more, and you're like, oh man, I don't have time to work out for an hour or do this whole video thing or go to the gym. And so what do? You do nothing. You wait until tomorrow or next week or when this, that, or the other changes. You're focused on the concern. I don't have that much time. Instead of influence. How much time do I have? What can I do? I could do a push-up. I could run in place for 2 minutes. Yes, you can. And you're like, well, what's that going to do, Derek? That's not going to do anything. Yes, it will. It will start to activate a different part of your neurochemistry and activate a little more dopamine, looking forward to the next time, or serotonin. It activates the energy of actual progress. And one push-up turns into 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 down the road. I can't write a whole book, Derek. You don't understand. I'm work. I have kids. Well, don't write a whole book. That's circle of concern. That's you focusing on all the things you can't do. That's lack. That's limitation. That's victimization. What can you do? Can you write 100 words? Yes, you can. Okay, so that's just a quick little thing, but we'll get into much more of that. So the more you focus on your circle of influence, the more agency you have, the more inspiration, the more creativity, the more power. It unlocks your untapped potential. When you act like you have power, like you have agency, okay? And you're able to do that in an ever widening upward spiral. And this is the really good news, your circle of concern shrinks. It atrophies, meaning less and less do you feel like a victim, to the point where eventually you don't have time for concerns. You don't have time, and you literally would have to force yourself to focus on all the BS going on, right? Like when people say, how's life treating you, Derek? I'm like, don't know, don't care. But I know how I'm treating life. I know how I'm treating myself in my life. That's my circle of influence. I don't have any control over outcomes, but I have all the control over my inputs and outputs. And so do you. Now you'll see how this all fits into the stories and the headlines, but I want you to get this fundamental principle. The key is increasing your circle of influence, right? And to do that, you first have to believe it's possible. Just a little bit, a grain of the mustard seed of faith. I can affect change. I have a little bit of agency. And then beginning to find examples you can practice with. But the highest leverage way is to change your story. The story about the world and the story about you. As Einstein said, we must eventually decide that either all of life is a miracle or none of it is. That's a different story. That's a different premise. We have to decide, put another way, that either life is for us or against us. Very simple. Or it just doesn't care. Right? Which one do you have? Like, honestly, not bullshit, Pollyanna, spiritual saran wrap, saying what you want to believe. What do you really believe? There's no judgment. Post it in the chat. What do you really believe? Do you believe all of life is a miracle and all of life is for you? Or do you believe, if I'm honest, I feel like it's kind of against me? And mainly you believe that because you're reacting and judging by conditions, appearances, etc. Your biological avatar is giving you the signal: pain, resistance, stress, life's against me. But what it's really doing is expressing the story that you're living in. Okay? Now, changing your story means changing the premise of it to something that says more like life is for me. And I'll get into, I know this might sound again kind of just cliche. Life isn't happening to me, but for me. Life isn't happening to me, but through me, as me. Or as the Bible says, I am made in the image and likeness of God, which secularly means I have the same creative capacity of the universe to create out of nothing. Right? The Big Bang or the Big Bam, blessed and multiply, right? I can create out of nothing, and I can create regardless of conditions. Like a lotus, I can emerge out of mud. That is true. But that's probably not the story you actually believe. Now, if there's any atheists here, because this is YouTube, we might get some people wandering in, the scientists, the rationalists, the atheists. You're our friend. You're my friend. I'm very scientific and rational and logical as well. Or just for the skeptics who might say, this God thing is ridiculous, I'm clicking away. Hold on. Or life is not for me. Life is not for us, right? Maybe even in the back of your mind, you're thinking, what if we really just live in a cold, meaningless universe that doesn't care about us? Don't you sometimes actually feel that way? Or you might hear things like this in your self-talk. Well, I don't want to lie. I'm not going to bullshit. Life sucks. My life sucks right now. I want to deal with reality, man. And we'll get to that. It's important to deal with the facts. Life experience is what it is. But life itself is something altogether different. So again, I get it if you have those reactions. Again, if you're from my community, most of you probably don't, but I encourage you to look a little deeper, right? Whether you believe in a higher power or not, it's hard to have faith when the world and your life looks like it's going to hell in a handbasket. So I want to share just briefly again, this being the first episode, I want to lay some frameworks out. And you can go back and rewatch this again, etc. But I want to share some principles or a principled way of beginning to think about life that could shift the premise of your story. Again, this is just foundational. When you get to the bottom of things, either through the latest cutting edge physics, including Nobel Prize winning physics, that has shown that time and space are not real, are not locally real, the simulation hypothesis, or even neuroscience, which understands that there is no color or depth or shape or things out here at all. It's all a large language model, and it's modeling reality, and your mind and story are creating a picture and an image. There's nothing out here like that. So that's actual science. And then even long-term meditators, or if you've studied the great masters of the mind and of reality throughout history, you'll get down to a bottom line understanding that whatever reality is, it's one thing. It's not dual. Okay, you don't have to call it God. You can just call it life. And I want you to follow me closely here, because you can have a shift right now today if you really let this in. Life can never be against itself. It's one, whatever it is. Call it God, call it Nirvana, call it the kingdom of heaven, call it Uncle Joe. It doesn't matter. It's one, indivisible, undivided wholeness of some kind. And life cannot diminish or destroy life. We even know this scientifically. Energy can either be created or destroyed. So just call it all energy. Energy can't destroy itself. Life can't destroy itself. So life and the law and the power of life can't do anything, create anything that would destroy itself. If so, life couldn't have even begun. And it would not be always seeking to evolve into a more life affirmative, complex expression, which is what it's all doing. You want to know the meaning of life? You got it here, folks. Breaking news from the real world, right? The meaning of life is the never-ending, ever-expanding expression, flourishing, and flowering of life. Period. Close the book. That's the truth. And evidence is everywhere. Now you might be saying, well, that's not true. Look at this person destroyed that person, that bomb destroyed that thing. Nature is wreaking havoc everywhere. That's this world. That's the world of appearances and effects, which again, we'll get into, which is mind created. And if you want to get a little esoteric for a moment, in Genesis in the Bible, there's two versions. One is the real expression of life. God named it all good, saw it was good, etc., which is just the perfect pattern of infinite reality. And then the second thing is the fall from Eden, the belief, the eating of the forbidden fruit of good and evil, and the belief of polarity and the falling into history, his story, into a human, material, mind-created reality of opposites. And the belief of good and evil, the belief of polarities and opposition, of there being a power of good and a power of bad. That belief, that ultimate false story, is what's perpetuating all of the appearance of life being against life and all of that, okay? We won't go down that rabbit hole today. But so life can only be for life. That's the bottom line. Put another way, truth is all there is. By definition, what is false is not true. And what is false is not real, obviously. So the only thing that's real is truth. What's false cannot exist. So truth can never be false, and truth can never go against itself. 2 + 2 = 4 can never decide on any level, in any way, or be convinced to do so, to be 2 + 2 = 3. Now, if you believe 2 + 2 = 3, you'll be shortchanging yourself or others all your life and wondering, why am I always broke? Because you have a false understanding of reality. You think 2 + 2 = 3, or maybe you think it's 5 and you're cheating everybody. But 2 + 2 still equals 4. You haven't changed reality. You're experiencing your own belief about it. So all there is life and truth, and the truth is life. So to believe that life is for you is the same as saying life is for life, is the same as saying energy can never be created or destroyed, and all there is energy, and so all that I must be is energy, so I can never be created or destroyed, so I was never born, I can never age, diminish, disease, or die. Now we're getting mystical, but you see it's the same thing. So to believe life only seeks to flourish more as you is to say the same thing. That's what Einstein was getting at with, you got to decide, it's all a miracle or none of it is. That's what all the great mystics and deep thinkers and masters are trying to say. Okay, so that's a foundation. I know I'm going fast. I want to try to make these experiences not 5 hours, not even 3 hours, maybe max 2 hours. But I want you to have a foundation. And post in the chat if you disagree, if you think I'm full of it, especially if you're outside my normal community. I want you here. I want your opinions and your feedback. This is a show and an experiment that will evolve to serve you and to respond in a way that will help you evolve. Okay? So finding a way, back to the story, finding a way to tell a story about ourselves and about the world that is life affirming. Not Pollyanna, as I'll mention in a moment, but ultimately is aligned with the principle I just outlined. Why? Because that is in alignment with reality, by definition. If you have a story that says life's against me and it's never going to work and I'm diminished and all these different things, or about anybody else, you are by definition telling a lie. But a lie believed will act as a law. A lie believed will act and operate as a law. Okay. Changing your story, though, means you change not just the meaning. I want to get a little deeper here, not just the meaning at what you're looking at. Like you look at your life, okay, life is for me. Now what? The world is going to hell in a handbasket, wars and rumors of wars and corruption. Okay, life is for me, Derek. There's a deeper process here. You're not just changing the meaning of what you're looking at. You're changing where you're looking from, what you're looking through, and this is important, what you're looking for. Where you're looking from, I'm going to say it again, you're changing where you're looking from, what you're looking through, and what you're looking for. Now, where you're looking from is your fundamental story, built by conditioning, core wounds during imprinting stage of your life, and sometimes later in life if there's big traumas. We'll talk about more of that in the coming episodes. That's where your life code is hidden. So that's where you're looking from, your fundamental story, your fundamental premise of life, your map of reality and your identity. Where you're looking through, that filter, is the strategies and habits you've built as a result of the story. And that creates cognitive filters so that you're literally deleting things that are actually there. You don't see them. This, again, is scientifically proven. You can prime a person, like just a silly little example. I forget all the details, but a person, they ask them to go look for the salt shaker in the cupboard, but they prime them first in a way. They open the cupboard and the salt shaker is right in front of them and they can't see it because of how they primed them for what they're looking for what it looks like, etc. And they literally are cognitively blind. So where you're looking from, that story determines what you see and don't see, and what you're looking through determines, again, the cognitive filters as well from that story. And it's like a form of hypnotism. It's not just, hear this, I know this gets a little complicated, but stay with me, this is important. Where you're looking from, the story collapses infinite possibilities into a relative reality, like in quantum physics, the observer effect. It collapses a superposition, meaning it's the cat is dead and alive all at the same time. The quantum wave fluctuation is an atom or is a particle or a wave. It's both, it's everything in between until you observe it, until you measure it, and then it collapses into something, a particle of reality. So that story collapses reality and you experience not reality, but your story about it. That's the starting point. That builds over time filters so that even if in your actual life there's something there or something comes in outside of your normal everyday, you won't be able to see it. Okay? Now, again, think of it like hypnotism. The guy who's hypnotized, there's a white poodle, he's chasing it all over the stage. He has to catch it. He wins a prize, whatever. And he's chasing this dog everywhere. He's sweating. He's going crazy. And from the audience perspective, he's just chasing air. Or put another way, so that's something that's not there that he thinks he is. That's the problem he's chasing that doesn't actually exist except in his mind. The other example could be the woman who's, told there's a bunch of cash on this table, and if you can find it, you can have it. But she's primed or hypnotized to believe the table is covered in snakes and garbage and whatever. And so it's it stinks, it's scary. She recoils. Right there is a stack of Benjamins, and she can't get them. She can't see them. So the abundance is there. The opportunity is there in her life, right there, and she can't see it. She can't get it. So that's from where you're looking from, where you're looking through. Now, the next thing is what you're looking for, which is the resulting expectation that your stories and filters have built in you. So if this woman has been looking all her life for, show me the money, and looking for the money, looking for the wealth, looking for the abundance, looking for the opportunity, whatever. But because of her story, I'm not worthy, and maybe, you know, men are bad, or I'm not men, but wealth is not good, shadows, things like that. And so wealth and success is bad. That's the snake. She's surrounded by opportunity and abundance, but she can't see it, right? Now what happens over time, she thinks now, you know, she joins a class, joins a call like this and says, okay, you know, I'm available to abundance and success. But when she gets on the call and where she's listening from and what she's expecting, hear this. The person is not actually expecting to find the abundance. They're expecting to not find it. They're expecting whatever that conditioned belief is because of where they've been looking from and looking through from that false premise or that limited story. So that again, you know, and we won't talk about this time, we'll talk about it in a future episode. You want to know what you really value, look at your credit card, your bank account, your conversations, and your calendar. And you'll be shocked. You say, I'm really into health or success or love or whatever. And then you see all these activities and investments and things of your time, talent, and treasure. And you'll see, if somebody objectively looked at that, they would say, this person is protecting themselves from being hurt. This person is protecting themselves from being judged or whatever. So understand, that means you're actually expecting to get the outcome that is a match for your story. And you'll get it every time until there's a crisis, which we'll talk about today, an apocalypse, an Armageddon, which will give you the opportunity to break out of that story. So in other words, you may think you're looking for something good, a job, a client, money, relationships, whatever, but it's not true, not entirely. Before you even start looking, building that website, writing that book, getting on that dating app, you're already looking for something that will validate your story and your filters. Put another way, you're often looking for, unconsciously, a good reason or excuse for why you can't, why you shouldn't, why you can't trust, why they'll never do that for you. Not now, at least, and at least not until XYZ. Fill in the blank. You get it? So what does all this have to do? Let me just take a quick check. I know that was a lot to download. I want to just see what's going on in the chat here. By the way, that opening song, some of you have heard it. It's a song I wrote, sang, everything, and then I produced it in AI. But let me see. Let me just see what you guys are saying here. And I really encourage you, stay engaged, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel so that you get the notifications, please. Also, subscribe and comment and like and send up whatever other little flares you can do on this platform to help it, the algorithm catch it, because we can't do this alone. We need to help a lot of other people wake up and reinterpret the stories of the world so that they can get free and have agency. And, this is part of the whole new human movement. And so please engage and check out the other videos. Click on them. There's tons of content here. All of that will help this message get out to people. Okay. That's right. Inside Out Healing says the RAS, the reticular activating system. So that's a part of the brain that it expects a certain thing and it sees a certain thing and it cognitively deletes or diminishes or makes up what's not there. So again, you buy those red shoes and suddenly you see red shoes everywhere, right? That kind of a thing. But likewise, if you believe it's impossible to have red shoes, you won't see red shoes anywhere. Or maybe you'll see them really far away where it's impossible to get to. Does that make sense? Inside Out Healing, why don't you ask real musicians? Well, I'm a real musician. It's just a lot easier for now to produce at least rough tracks and things like that. We won't get into this today, but we'll talk about that in future episodes about AI, because that's another story. Even notice right there, why don't you ask real musicians? That's what they said when the drum beat stuff started coming out, when you could program a drum machine. And they were like, no, this is terrible, man. You need a real drummer. And now it's everywhere and everyone, including the real musicians, using it. That's what they said about the DAWs, the different programs you use to build songs, lay on tracks. A vast majority of most popular music is all done by computer, with real musicians creating it and occasionally bringing in some real musicians, but real artists, real creators. But notice right there's an example of, and this is a very prevalent one now. Again, we won't go all the way down the rabbit hole today. There's a lot of negativity around AI, and some of it is very warranted, as I talk about in my new book, Get It Now. But you also got to be careful that you're not falling prey to a story that isn't actually going to serve you. Okay, and we'll get into that later. If you are a musician and you want to do real music or whatever, not real music, but have an actual guitar or whatever the case may be, awesome, do it. But just notice, as an example, that's what we're talking about today. Okay, so what does this all have to do with reinterpreting the news of the real world, being an ambassador of the real world, in order to bring forth your true purpose and potential and actually affect real change in the world and in your life? Because ultimately, this is all about bringing it back to you. This isn't a conspiracy channel, even though we'll talk about those things. This isn't a place to just gripe, complain, point fingers, be on a team, or even just to be up to date on all the headlines. Because who gives a shit? Okay? Who cares what's going on in the world to the extent that it doesn't really affect you, or it really can't? Now, there's another way to look at news, which is it's a prayer request. It's an invitation to know the deeper truth. So in that regard, once and as you come to that stage of your development, then yes, open yourself to the news of the world as a prayer request. So that as that news hits you like a bug zapper, your consciousness is purifying. Your consciousness is uplifting. Your consciousness is literally changing the collective. This is how real healing works. It's the consciousness of wholeness that heals. And so when you're able to do that, you will find you're given a bigger platform. You will find people and things around you start to change because your story has changed, your consciousness. Okay, so you can't be living in the old story or even in the story of this world or of your past, especially if it's a story of lack, limitation, or anti-life, and expect things to get better. You cannot make a demand on life that exceeds your belief about it. I'm going to say that again. You cannot make a demand on life or even a prayer request or whatever that exceeds your belief. Okay? So all the visioning and the vision boards and the prayers and the manifestation techniques and all this stuff, it's often done from inside the old story, and that's why it doesn't work. Or it even makes things worse. You get a bigger paycheck and you're broke at a higher income bracket with a bigger mortgage. Now you're really stressed. All right? So keep posting, sharing your feedback. The key here is you have to break out of this matrix, this simulation in your mind, the museum of the mind, where you've hung all these old pictures and artifacts and you've called it reality. You must get outside of that museum and glimpse reality, also known as the allegory of Plato's cave. Some of you may have heard of that. You have to find a way to get a glimpse of the bigger reality. And the more you do, the more your story changes to a more expansive premise and possibility. And that changes your character. And your character, literally, like you talk about, you need to have better character. But it's not even almost, Tentibra. We are trapped until we're not. And that's the purpose of this. We're trapped. And I want you to again understand the headlines screaming at you, the algorithms hijacking your limbic system, even your friends commiserating with you. It's all part of a collective ego that is designed to keep you trapped. Either trapped with things that are addictive, and really that's all it is, whether it's addiction to anger and outrage or other substances, but it's designed to keep you trapped. Excuse me. Getting choked up here. So when you change that story, you change the premise and the possibility, and it changes your character. Because the old character can't live in the new story. As Jesus said, you can't put new wine into old wineskins. Thank you for the question, Kat. We're going to get to that. So it changes your character, and it's really important to understand this principle. Character determines your destiny, not your conditions. Conditions do not determine destiny. Character does. Character is made of your beliefs, your habits, the things you do consistently, the things you really value, that you're committed to. And the character currently is made up of the values born out of that story that have become a commitment, that have become habits, that have become your character. And that's what determines destiny. Okay? Fate is the thing we suffer when we don't really know ourselves and awaken to ourselves more fully. When we're stuck in the story, we experience fate. Destiny is what you experience when you wake up to your true nature, to the real story and the deeper character you're here to play. So we have to do the work on ourselves and all of that, develop your potential and stuff. But the high leverage thing we're talking about, most importantly, is we have to change the story we're in. Otherwise, as I already said, all the work you're trying to do is going to be improving short-term conditions or character features or flaws inside the same old story. And you will end up with the same outcomes. Like I said, you get a bigger paycheck, yay, and you're just broke at a higher income bracket. How did that happen? You get a new job, yay, and you end up with the same jerky boss. What? You get a new relationship, yay, love, and then you're in the same fight 6 months later or 6 weeks or 6 days, over and over, same day or same story, different day. That's why the average person doesn't live 70 to 80, 70 to 90 years. They live the same year 70 to 90 times. You with me? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Okay. Send up some likes, flares. Let me know you're engaged. Let me know you're really with me here. Give me 1 sec. Okay. So the shortcut, the hack, the cheat code is that as we see differently, so shall we be different. Or as the Bible says, as thou seest, so thou beest. That's the principle. You don't get what you want, you get what you see. But remember, you're not just seeing what's out there, you're seeing from, through, and looking for. You're already seeing the problem before it even appears, because you're looking for it. And again, you do not experience reality. First of all, you can't. Reality is infinite. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So you cannot see reality. It's infinite. You can't even experience it, not really. And so that's because it's infinite, and because the nature of individual consciousness is we're unfolding and exploring more and more and more of infinite reality, from glory to greater glory, world without end. But now we see through a glass darkly, and then we shall see face to face. These are all saying the same things, just in old English and biblical parlance. But reality has to have a way to be experienced, otherwise there's no point. And so you will experience it relatively, right? There's perfection. There's your perception of perfection, often filtered. That turns into a projection, an image, a concept, a map. And then we create protection. We put a frame around it and we call it reality. It's not. It's life experience. It's our best guess now. And reality is infinitely larger around the edges. So we do always have to have some story until we truly transcend it altogether. But I think even then, Jesus is still living in a story somewhere. It's just a really big one, or Buddha, or whoever. Because again, reality is infinite. You can't experience it. But you can continue to experience an ever greater, ever wider vista of it. So just know you don't experience reality, you experience your story about reality, about yourself and about the world. What's this, Lolita? From, through, and for. And now, present news seeking a prayer. Look for prayers to inform our next, what we do. Have the sense of how do we modulate this act. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I'm just, again, on this first episode, I want to lay these frameworks out, and I want to encourage you to listen again, take notes. You don't have to do it right now, because there is a lot to soak in. We could do a whole week on this. We could do weeks on this, and we will keep adding and layering this in. But I want to just give you this framework as we enter into understanding how to interpret the real story behind the headlines, reality behind the scene, right? SEEN. So becoming masters at this process of seeing the bigger, deeper, truer story will lead us to self-mastery, will unlock our greater potential, and it'll increasingly align us with what life really is, or what God really is, or what truth really is, and what it's really up to, right? What it's really about, what's trying to emerge, rather than conforming to the world, conforming to our old story, conforming to the world story, saving the world as it is, saving ourselves as we were. No, we serve what's emerging. We get interested. What's trying to emerge by means of this condition, right? That deeper truth, that deeper purpose, that deeper potential of our life in the world. Now, again, in all confession, this episode and this show that I'm trying to create here for you, this new live stream experience, is an experiment. I believe it's something I've been wanting to do for years, and I've certainly done it and woven it into many of my courses and classes, but I want to do it. I believe now's the time, and I was like many of you, I get stuck in the same stuff. Oh, I got to wait till I have the producer and I have it all produced and I have it all right and all the right videos and images and this, that, and the other. No, that's a story. That's a story that says, unless you have all the bells and whistles and do it right, do it perfectly, blah, 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 it's going to fail. You're going to fail, which is an old story, which is based on an old wound, et cetera, et cetera. So I caught myself and I'm like, just put on the fucking show. Okay. So I broke out of that story, from waiting for so long. And as you guys know, I teach you the same thing. It's like, don't wait. When you tell yourself, when this, then I, you're stuck. You are stuck in a story. You may not be able to do all you want to do. You may not get all the results you want to get. But the story of when this, then I is a story of victimhood. Get it? So I believe this very strongly, that this will be very valuable to you in the times we're in. And so, but I need from you is, I need you as much to help evolve this into what it is meant to be. So that's why, give me your feedback, give me your questions. What are the headlines, the topics, the issues, as we'll get to a little bit later, that you care about? This is not just the Derek show, meaning I'm just going to share whatever the hell I want. That's part of it. But I want it to actually be helpful and to serve you and to serve our world in these times that we are living in, which is, we are living in an apocalypse. And I'll get into what that really means. So I need you to help shape this, right? And as I already said, part of that support is like and subscribe. What do they say? Smash that like button. Like and subscribe, share it with others. It takes you seconds, but it can make a big difference to that person that finds it and gets in here, okay? Not to mention, I'll be able to more easily notify you about it versus sending you a bunch of emails, which eventually I will stop doing, okay? And then you won't know about it unless you're subscribed. So subscribe and watch the other videos that interest you. All of this will help, as we'll again talk about a little bit later. If you're thinking, oh, YouTube is bad and Facebook is bad and these algorithms are bad, and so I'm not going to play that game at all. Okay, fair enough. But on some degree, you're going to struggle. As Dr. Phil said to Oprah when he first met her, and she was in this cattle ranchers beef lawsuit, and she was losing bad. And one day he found her in her hotel room, literally on the floor in pajamas, crying. And she's like, I don't understand it. I'm like, I'm trying to come from love and all these beautiful things. And why are they doing this to me? It's not fair. And he's like, girl, whatever the philism is, you're like an old pair of alligator shoes, blah, 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 that you've outgrown. He's like, you need to get up and get on the field in the game they're playing, or they're going to kick your keister down the field. I mean, he didn't say it exactly like that, but you get the idea. So you got to be in this world, but increasingly not of it. And so the game right now is for this information to get out there. It's going to have a lot to do with the algorithm, and you can help if you believe in this and resonate. Okay. So as I said, I believe this is so urgently valuable and important to me, and I believe to you, because we're in a real apocalypse in the Latin meaning of the word, which is what it really means, which means the lid has come off and what was hidden is being revealed. And the problem, and so that's why we have Epstein files and Disclosure Day, Spielberg and government, UFOs and Pizzagate, whatever the thing is, all the seeming conspiracies and craziness, all the corruption that's being revealed in the government, at least in the US, but really all over the place, it's happening. That was hidden is being revealed. The problem is the way it's being revealed is being hijacked by, again, these algorithms that are not your friends. They're not here to liberate you and wake you up. They're like, ooh, Epstein files. We can use that and we can increase I'm not saying that's a person, although there are people. It's hijacking your limbic system. It's hijacking ancient processes in you. And it's like using all of what is being revealed to dig you deeper into the matrix. Think about that. Okay? So it's jacking us up. It's hijacking our limbic system. It's making us scared or mad. And it doesn't really liberate us in the way that we actually need, right? As I said, news and media is not your friend. It does not tell you the truth. In fact, the actual truth is anti-news. First of all, it's not news. Notice the word N-E-W-S, news, the new things. It's all the olds, O-L-D-S. It's just the same story over and over and over again. Again, it's not your friend. It's designed to prevent real truth, the kind of truth that will change the world. And truth will set you free, but at first it'll scare the shit out of you, piss you off, and annihilate you. So it's like we have to understand the mechanism here. What is it really annihilating? What is it really destroying? That's Armageddon. It's the destruction of our concepts of the world, the destruction of our models of the world. Truth, real truth, will kill you. The you that is stuck in an old story. Okay? Just think about that. This is why Jesus said, if you try to save your life, you'll lose it. And they all said it in their own ways. If you try to save it, you'll lose it. But if you're willing to lose it for my sake, which really just means this higher potential, this higher world, then you'll have it everlasting. Glory to greater glory. It'll just keep unfolding. More you, more true, more life. But we have to understand that the world as we know it is not designed to give you the truth. Now, on a more practical level, the corporate and governmental power structures behind all of it, they're not designed for your freedom and flourishing primarily, but for control. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Control of what? Control of the story, of the narrative. Why? So they can keep the story intact and keep us in control, painting inside the lines. What's the story or the narrative the system is trying to keep alive? That we're merely humans, that we're largely powerless, that there are other people in powers better than us or worse than us or against us that we must fight or save or destroy. It's all the same story. It's the age-old battle of good versus evil. Adam and Eve eating that damn fruit, which is probably mushrooms or something, and going on a bad trip, a very interesting trip. And it never says in Genesis they woke up, by the way. They fell asleep. A great sleep fell upon them. and they had a trip. They fell into history, right? So it's this age-old battle of good and evil. And if we're going to be truly free, if we were truly free, it would dismantle the global story and thus the power structures. Now, I want you to let that sink in. I know most of you know this, but I want you to really let it sink in from the larger context we've been talking about today. The truth would destroy so much of the global power structures, the economies. And that would be a really, really rough ride. Now, it's done that over time. That's how we've evolved, right? From, all kinds of very low level, limited, terrible stuff we used to do to kids and women and people of color and all these different things. It's evolved. So it's better. It's a better story, but look at what it took to evolve. Wars and ravages and civil wars and blood in the street. So we have to be eyes wide open, not Pollyanna. This is not Pollyanna vision under the inverted triangle with incense and chant this thing and believe in this thing and ta-da, you get utopia. No. If you're going for that utopia, you will create a dystopia. This is not airy-fairy. It's airy-gritty, right? And so that's the same with our own life, though. When you really know the truth, when it finally comes through, it doesn't go and lay flowers at your feet. It lets you see where you've been stuck, where you've been holding back, the shame, the guilt, the fear. But it is seeking. Like I've been saying lately, you plant a tree and life is emerging, but you forget that you planted the tree there or that it was an oak tree. And right now it's just a little sapling. And then you build a wall around it and you build sidewalks. And then cut to a year or two later, it's tearing up the sidewalk, knocking down the wall. And you're like, what the actual fuck? What's going on here? This is terrible. No, that's life. And it's not going to stop if you let it, but it's going to tear down structures that aren't serving what's emerging. Is this too deep for you? Is this too harsh? You guys with me? Post in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. So again, from a global story, history point of view, this is why they crucified Jesus. This is why they assassinated Gandhi, Dr. King, JFK, Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy was trying to tell us a new story about GDP and economies and letting us see what they call gross domestic product here in the West is based on wars and ambulances and people getting sick and dying and cancer. That's what our economy is built on. At least a lot of it. Increasingly, it's built on AI now. And he was like, well, what about the one loving their child, the nurse, this person tending to this thing, all the things that are not valued economically? What about that? Where does that fit into the GDP? It doesn't. That's why it's called gross domestic product, right? It's kind of gross, but it's a story. Money is a story. And these people that dared tell a newer, truer, better story got to cut the head off that poppy. Now, that's not a conspiracy. I want to really make a distinction. That's a fact. But, and this is really the key, it's not about a person doing this. Yes, people do this, but it's really the false story that's doing it. Remember, you don't experience life, you experience your belief or story about life. Well, the world is not experiencing itself. It's experiencing the collective story about life. The material world is mind made manifest. It is mind in solidity, whereas the mind is matter in liquidity and fluidity. The material world is just mind stuff. It's story. It's literally made out of that. So the collective ego, the collective story, believes it's protecting reality. If you were ever an actor, and I was, or about actors, an actor playing the villain, they can't play a bad guy. It won't work. It'll be terrible. They have to find the way to see their actions as the good guy. They're doing good. They're protecting the city from this. They're protecting this from this. So, as crazy as it might be, Hitler thought he was the good guy, like legitimately. And there was a spiritual pattern of the perfect being that was trying to emerge through a distorted, destructive story and identity, and it created mass death and destruction. And that's what we do. The idea of socialism, communism, the biggest mass murder in history. Because the fundamental premises of the story are false, or at least limited. So again, it's not about a person. We're not, because this is the danger. Trump did it, Biden did it, they did it, Epstein did it, right? What happens is that this collective story generates characters, right? A tree produces leaves and fruits. The universe produces people. It produces the characters. It knows how to tap into the characters who also are living from that survival mode and a limited story. And then it uses human consciousness as an avatar to fulfill itself. The story does. This, by the way, is the meaning of the devil. The word evil is lived backwards. Devil is lived backwards in English. The devil is a collective story, a belief of separation, lack, limitation, duality that has so much energy that it creates temptation, it creates influence. It's just a collective ego, right? But the truth is, it's not your friend. It's not protecting you anymore. As I teach, the ego is a program. It's just a program. It's not good or bad. It's a program. But to that program, to any story, real change is danger or death. It's a virus. So over time, it develops antivirus software to destroy any idea that could corrupt its program, its story. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, you need a story. You need boundaries. You need to turn chaos into order. Remember, chaotic. And you need to stall entropy and create a sense of, relief and identity and where things are and all of that. And that's got a lot of value. And so it develops these antivirus mechanics, which is stop anything that could get in and corrupt the story, corrupt the program, because then the system will fail. And that's true. What will fail? The system that is now outdated, that is, or never was even good. So that's important so that you don't fall into the trap of pointing fingers and blaming anybody, because to the extent you're blaming anybody, pointing fingers at anybody, saying they're the problem, to that extent, you're in that story. And you're just one of the chorus, and you're part of the problem. You understand? So it's now, and also, this is happening in your own personal life, right? What's stopping and blocking us and sabotaging your real growth? It's the same process. Your individual ego, program, identity map of reality. Okay, let's take a breath. I know that's a lot. It's a lot, but you can tell I got a lot to say. And I hope you're finding value, but I want to just take a breath. Post in the chat what's bringing up, what's coming up. And again, you can rewatch this, take notes. I encourage you to. This is a framework for life and for living and reality that will ultimately be critical in waking up out of the matrix of the world in your own limited story. So you can become what you're meant to become. So you can make the difference you really came for and help awaken the world to a newer, truer story that actually finally works for the highest good of all, right? The question is, will it be a new story? There's going to be a new story. Understand, no matter what, the story is going to keep being told. The question is, will it be life affirmative and serve the highest good, or just be another version of the old story for your own life and in the world? What's this? Oh, hey, Dennis. Good to see you, brother. Can you sit down with the person and immediately know what their block of reality is? If you tell them, can you tell them straight up, or are they unable to be open? I can do that. It's a skill I've built over many, many years, decades, really. Kind of a name that tune. I can see the patterns. But I don't just walk around and tell people the story they're stuck in. Don't be a coach to your family or your loved ones. Don't try to be an evolutionary coach and tell people where they're stuck. The highest circle of influence is get yourself unstuck. Live in a different, higher story yourself. That was my experience growing up and eventually being an adult, where my mom said I joined a cult and my dad was worried I would be a failure and I should do what he did. And my brother thought I freaked out on Jesus. And my sister was like, why the hell would anybody ever pay you for your advice? And I lost friends. And instead of trying to convince them, I had to first convince myself. I had to get firmly rooted in a new story, which means a new character. As I did, my life began to bear the fruit of that new story. And one by one, my family all came back at a higher level, asking me for help, asking for my guidance, having their own spiritual awakenings or openings, etc. And then a whole new community of friends, etc., blossomed around me. And that's a never-ending iterative process. Because, and even Jesus said this, as I am lifted up, I draw all men unto me. He would have said women too, if it was today. The point is, as you lift up, as you put yourself, as you get honest, what's the story I'm living in? What's the lie I'm believing that's become a law in my life? Where am I getting, again, as you'll see, hopefully if we have time today, we'll get there. You'll see, how am I reacting to the mirror of the world's stories? Because that's telling me a lot about where I'm stuck. And in some cases where I'm meant to go. But then you get yourself free. You get yourself in a higher story, in a better story, in a truer story. And then the people and the conditions in your life must adapt, or they will be spun out of your story. Why? Because you're not experiencing the world, you're experiencing your story about it. And all the characters are in your story, right? You're a star in your story, you're a guest spot in someone else's, a supporting actor in another, and they're supporting actors in yours. And so as your story legitimately changes, like that's what happened. My story was changing. And so like people were, first of all, bumping up against it because literally energetically, they could feel the pressure and not understanding it. They would judge me, attack me, blame me, shame me, guilt me, whatever. But as I didn't get hooked, or if I did get hooked, that showed me where I was stuck in that story. And I had to do the work to get free of that story. And as I got freer and was not just saying the affirmation, but literally embodying the new character in a new story, the people that were not able or willing to play a new part themselves, which is good for them ultimately because it calls them up to a higher level, they just couldn't be in that play anymore. But the people that were energetically, vibrationally, whatever, a match, that was the character they were meant to play, that they wanted to play, or that they already were playing, suddenly they're in my play, right? And so it goes. So and the thing is the story is ongoing. The world is a story. Life experience is a story. And you just got to decide which story you're going to be in. And you got to ask yourself, when you really start to understand and unpack your story, you'll have all kinds of legitimate reasons to hold on to a limited negative story. Well, you don't understand, Derek. He, she did that to me, and screw them. And you don't understand, Derek. These politicians, these people, you don't understand. How can you say, that's okay? Then you have to ask, is that story getting you where you want to go? What's the utility value of that story? Is it useful? Yeah, because then I'm protecting myself and nobody's going to do me wrong again. Okay, I hear you. But again, what's the outcome you want? Do you want to be living in the story where the world is against you and you can't trust people and you got to protect your heart because you got your heart broken before? And is that a story like the physics, literally the cause and effect physics that will lead to the love affair you want, the inspiration you want, the outcomes you want, the abundance you want. If it's a story of lack, it will not lead to abundance. It's a story of how you've been hurt and you're protecting yourself from hurt. It will not lead to love or peace. If you're at war, you will not get to peace. You understand? So there's a utility. It's like just factual. Is this getting me there? Okay, run the experiment. How's it working for you? So it doesn't matter what the world's doing. But you don't understand, Derek, this, that. There's real bombs and dangers and plagues and wars. I know. So what's the story you're going to tell? Or is the story you're telling right now going to actually change that for the better? Actually, not just in your mind because you're complaining and gossiping and trolling and posting whatever, but actually. And the way you know is you go, if I was living that new world in that new life, who would I be? How would I feel? What would I think? What would I be focused on? What kind of thoughts? Where would my energy go? What would I be looking for? Etc. And now bring that person into your present life and see the gap. And there will be one. And you'll go, oh shit, this isn't going to get me there. Like I've taught, on the most practical level, people that, they talk about how, you shouldn't charge for your work if you're spiritual. I'm like, how's that working for you? You're broke, right? Or you shouldn't charge more because now you're taking from selfish people, or you're taking from people and you're selfish. Okay, let's play that physics out. Do you have enough money to get what you need to thrive and flourish and give your gifts to the world? No. Okay, so could it be that your story, the premise that there's not enough to go around, the premise that if you have a lot, somebody has less, is false? The answer is yes, by the way, et cetera, right? So what's the story you're going to choose? And again, from the beginning principles we talked about, the world is a mirror at a civilizational scale. Everything happening out here is a signal. Most people are reacting to it. But what we're here showing up to, and hopefully you will show up and bring your friends on a regular basis, is we're going to decode it. We're going to understand the real story underneath it. And we're going to start to see how much we are stuck in the matrix. And I've spent 25 years helping people do that, as I just mentioned before. Read what's behind the scene, SEEN, in their lives, in their work, in their world. Billionaires, millionaires, tech moguls, Oscar and Emmy winners, you name it. And every day, coaches, healers, teachers, authors, parents, it's the same principle. It doesn't matter. So just to take a little moment here, post in the chat. If you haven't already, post in the chat, like really post. If you guys haven't been posting and you're just listening, understand another principle. Whatever's missing in your life is what you're not giving, what you're not circulating or generating. So as a practice, engage a little more than you normally would and just notice what happens in you. It might be uncomfortable at first, but all of you that are listening, post in the chat, where are you from? Where are you joining from right now? That's one thing. And what's got you most triggered or destabilized right now from the world or your own life? So just take a moment and post that. I'm just going to look through here. Lolita says, I'm more like a plant. Well, it's interesting you should say that. I use an analogy. A plant, if it's put in a little pot, which it starts off that way, sometimes really teeny pots. If you think of that as an analogy, the plant doesn't look at all the bigger pots and the field and go, why am I not in a bigger pot? How can I get into a bigger pot? Why did they put me in a small pot? How dare them? It's prejudice, whatever. No, the plant can't do that. It doesn't have a story. about that. What does it have? It has its evolution, and its story, if you could read it, is dig your roots deeper, stretch your branches further, get all the nourishment you can get, soak up all the sun you can get. And so it does that in that little pot. It has a story that is affirmative, life affirmative. Let me get every little bit of nutrient. Let me dig my roots as far as they'll go. Let me stretch my branches. Not, why can't I stretch my branches farther? Why don't I have deeper roots? Why isn't there enough nourishment? Which is a different story, right? And what happens? The plant grows and it outgrows the pot. And then it gets put in a bigger pot, and a bigger, and a bigger, and eventually set loose in the field, if that's its destiny. It's fine. It can also just be in a pot in your house and be perfectly happy. But the point is, it's filling out the moment with more of who and what it is, because its story, evolutionarily speaking, is if I do that from the earth and from the sun, more life will come through me. And it does. That makes sense? Robert, the clowns are the hardest trigger to beat. So we may not get to this today, but you guys know, if you're part of my community, about the shadow work. I would say to you, Robert, you need to go in and work with your clown shadow, because you know you're a clown, brother. You know you've been clowning, and the trolls and whatever else. That's a judgment. That's a projection. That's a shadow. Some of you, especially if you haven't been with me, are like, oh, Jesus Christ, what is this guy talking about? You telling me there's not clowns out there? I'm out of here. I'm telling you that this world is a collective dream you're dreaming. And just like all the parts of a dream are the personifications of your own psyche, so too are the clowns and the trolls and the evil and the enemy and the blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying condone behavior. I'm saying if you're triggered, what bothers you can better you if you become trigger happy, right? Ooh, that clown, that troll, ooh, that's some unintegrated part of me. This is why Jesus said, love your enemy, and the enemy is in your own household. This is why Rumi wrote the poem, The Guest House. You know, these different sadness or anger or whatever shows up at your door, invite them in for a cup of tea. You don't know what magic or secrets or whatever they're bringing. And it's true. So, and even Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and men and women but players upon it, each having their own entrances and exits. And so there's clowns on stage. There's clowns, there's snakes, there's villains, there's the good guy, the bad guy. And you need a really good bad guy so that the good guy can become a really good guy. Jesus needed Judas. Jesus wasn't mad at Judas. Jesus was like, go do what you got to do and do it quickly. Right? Don't pull the Band-Aid off slow, man. Go do it so I can do me. I got myself a resurrection to attend. And then he could be like, how do you like me now? Right? You thought you could bury me. You thought you could kill me. You think you're dead? Let me show you something. I needed Judas to play that part. Now, I'm not saying giving permission to your dark, shadowy creatures. Oh, Derek said I can go out and do some really bad stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a story. If it triggers you, what pushes you or pulls you is a projection of unintegrated parts of you. Get curious, get interested, and then embrace that part and discover what its message, its value, its meaning is. This is great. Your true life now. My biggest concerns are about loved ones who are stuck in their story, and I see their suffering, wanting to help them. I understand I can only change myself. Yeah, that's right. And again, you ever been there, like you're at church or you had a great talk. Some of you might be going, wow, if only Bob was here. He needs to hear this, right? You ever done that? Oh gosh, she really needs to hear this. If you ever hear yourself saying that, you really need to hear it. And I get it. Of course, you care about your loved ones. That's beautiful. But understand there's a story there. Now, we won't go down the rabbit hole today of the quantum healing capacity of, as I said in the very beginning, the consciousness of wholeness is what heals. A story that's more whole, more undivided, more life affirmative is literally one of the most powerful healing activities on the planet and in your life. That's why the pen is mightier than the sword. Okay. The sword might be able to kill a person, but the pen, the story, can change the world. So there's a story there about your loved ones. Write it down. Again, we'll be decoding it more and more through these episodes, but write that story down. What are you telling yourself about them and about you? There's lots of good stuff there, like, oh, they're suffering, they're struggling. If only they knew this, they would just listen to me. And I'm not saying they're not really experiencing suffering and struggle. But is that story you're telling expansive? And I don't mean Pollyanna, right? Like, you can go on a great adventure and be scared shitless a lot of times, but it's like, oh my God, you see that, man? We almost got eaten by that tiger. That was amazing. I am so alive. That's expansive. So that you can go do hard things and be part of an adventurous and a big story there's real challenge. You could really fall in a snake pit. You can really have challenges. People can struggle. So the question is the story you're telling activating more life force? Do I feel more energized and more alive, even if I'm scared, and more focused on a worthy goal, energy for a worthy goal, or do I feel contracted? And you can feel that. That means less life is moving through me right now. And now you're like this little hose with all these little kinks and crimps and a little barely dribbling, and you're like, let me save you, right? I'm not saying this is you necessarily, but you get the idea. And you can't save them. Right? Healer, heal thyself. And I know you know this, but discover the story first before you try to fix it, because you cannot solve a problem at the level of the story that created it. And it's not your fault. You didn't create the story. Remember, there's a collective story. You were born into it. You caught the virus. And this is how you inoculate yourself from it, with a better story. Again, it doesn't mean you won't do something, but where are you doing it from? Okay. Let's see here. So Mind Coach Lisa says, I'm trying to figure out how to act both from a spiritual level and a practical action-based level to help take positive action and change the things I value and believe in, like political advocacy. Yeah, absolutely. Remember, I'm not of the secret, just dream and imagine a red bicycle and show up at your back door. Action is affirmations and work clothes. Faith without works is dead. So action ultimately is your real religion. Action tells you what you really value and believe. But where it's coming from ultimately determines its efficacy, its effectiveness, because of the story. So if it's like, bad people over here, let's stop them. This is why Mother Teresa, she got invited to a lot of anti-war rallies. She said, no, thank you. But I'll come to a pro-peace rally anytime. And this is why Dr. King was effective, where Malcolm X was, let's say, less effective until he had his transformation, and then they killed him because he didn't fit that story anymore. But Dr. King was telling a bigger and a better story. I've had a dream. I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. We're not enemies. And so let's bring love. He wasn't a wimp. He wasn't a doormat. He was a welcome mat. Same with Gandhi. He called Gandhi one of the best Christians he knew, even though Gandhi was a Hindu, because he was talking about this principle we're talking about. And so if you're going to make a change in the world, you have to, as Gandhi said, be and become the change, right? I remember my mentor, Michael Beckwith, sharing with me once, I think he was part of the Black Panthers, him and my other mentor, Nirvana, Reginald Gale. And they were in this one meeting once. They would meet, and they were all around this table, these really rough and tumble social warriors. And Michael looked around and was like, suddenly had a realization, a moment of grace, and said, if we got into power, it would be just as bad or worse. Because he could just see the ego, the polarization, this is better. I know better. And so we're going to do the right thing and save everybody from the bad people or the bad condition. And so he didn't come back. That next week, a couple guys got shot from that meeting. So we got to be mindful of that, right? It's like all of this, the woke kind of movement, the anti-racist movement, the Me Too movement. There's value in all of these advocacies, the left and the right. You need a left and a right wing to fly. Okay. You need a left and a right hemisphere. You need masculine and feminine. That's the Tao. You need both. Your right and left brain aren't arguing to try to win over the other hemisphere. Wouldn't that be insane? When that happens, you literally do go insane, right? The bird isn't flying and the right wing is like trying to make the left wing kill the left wing, kill the right wing. That bird would die. If from an evolutionary standpoint, it would die out as a species. So, but nature is not stupid. Nature isn't stuck in this story, but we are. And so if you want to change the world and make a difference in your loved ones' lives, politically or otherwise, you got to really take some time to look at the story, its ultimate utility. Like just one example, the problem with the whole, let's say the Black Lives Matter story is not that there shouldn't be increasing and always a big story that's big enough to create a world that works for all, that removes the racism and injustice and all that thing. I would say, obviously, maybe that's not obvious to everybody, but that story was going against the European, the white person, and then you add in sexual orientation. So now it's anti-white, anti-man, anti-straight, cisgender, whatever. Now, again, that's not to say there's not real problems happening. I want to be very clear. There's nothing Pollyanna here. But that story didn't get the net result. What did it do? It created a generation now of men who are angry and scared and lonely and in their basement and shooting up schools, and there'll only be more of that. Because that's the story. Man is the enemy. Man is toxic. What do we see happening with the racial movement? We see a populist moment we're living in, an uprising of white nationalism. When you create a story that is attacking and against the quote unquote enemy, you create a bigger enemy. And it will give you an equal and opposing force back until you destroy each other. And then out of the ashes, the phoenix will rise again and see if we can get it right this time. So that's true in your own life. If it's you against your husband or wife, mom and dad, sister, that's true with you and your boss and colleagues. That's true with the political movements, the social movements. Again, it doesn't mean there's not problems, social injustice, civil rights injustices, bigotry, prejudice, ugliness, right? But the question is what's the kind of story I need to be in, or that I would be living in if it all worked for the highest good of all? And you'll see in history when it's actually affected real long-term change, either in an individual's life, in a business, in a family, in a marriage, or in a country, or in the world. I'm a student of that. And if you trace that back, you'll see those that changed history first got clear on his story or her story and did their best, nobody's perfect, to tell a better story. And the result was the story eventually was the emerging story. Again, they didn't just try to save the world. They served the better story, the new myth that was emerging. And what we call evolution, socially, economically, or otherwise, happened. And that's also what happens in an individual's life. When they really grow and they really have more health, more wealth, more love, more joy, more peace, more inspiration, et cetera, they have a new story. Okay? They are not the same story. They're not the same character. They changed their character. They evolved and adapted and made a commitment to becoming the character they would be if they were living in the story they really want, with the outcome that they truly desire. They became the change. Is this making sense? Post in the chat. Let me know what you're getting. Feedback, pushback. I'm going to go through more of these questions. I just want to touch on a couple more things, and then I really want you to share your questions. We're not going to go through all these segments today, but I wanted you to know what's coming up so that you tune in, like and subscribe, share with a friend. Is that, again, we'll have what I call the apocalypse report. and you could say this is in a way the first apocalypse report. But again, as I said, the word apocalypse comes from Greek, apocalypsis, which means the unveiling, not the destruction, right? And Armageddon is not the end of the world, it's the end of our concepts of the world. There's revelation, and it's just like the truth is being revealed and it's destroying the world, right? Lakes of fire and whatever. It's all allegory, metaphor. Although it can literally manifest in certain ways as we see. And that leads to, that's part of the apocalypse, the unveiling of what's been hidden. And again, what's hidden is demons and angels, right? It's the stuff we've been repressing. When the priest or the minister, the pious family values minister suddenly, gets caught with prostitutes and drugs. That's an apocalypse. It's a revelation, and it's Armageddon. Because now, and that happens in a destructive way because we are not conscious of the story we're living in. Okay? And so eventually, if we're praying to be better, intending to be better, wanting more and better, we're activating that seed of that mighty oak tree, and it's going to destroy the sidewalk, knock down the walls, and maybe tear up the foundation of our house. That's not a bad thing. But we got to know, okay, whoa, I've been praying and intending and desiring and visioning to be more and have the life I really want. It's the seed within me that wants to emerge. I better draw up some new blueprints for my yard, for my house, for my wall. Let me actually take parts of the wall down so it doesn't have to get knocked down into the neighbors. And then I get sued. Like, you understand what I mean? It's a proactive approach, and you become a protagonist. You become proactive. You are the creator of your reality. You don't wait for the drama. And for many of you, we're all in the drama to some degree. Okay, so this happens at every level, as I already said. It happens globally. It happens in your own personal life. Every time we grow, mature, awaken, something has to die, an old identity, an old belief, an old way of being. That's your personal apocalypse and Armageddon, right? The Armageddon often preceded by an apocalypse, an unveiling, suddenly discovering, I'm living a lie. This marriage isn't working. I can't go on like this. Standing up in your office, I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. That's an apocalypse. And it will be followed often by an Armageddon. You get fired, you quit, you get divorced, you lose your house, whatever the case may be. Not pretty, but necessary. But again, there's ways to preempt emergencies by noticing the urgency of emergence in you. Emerge and see. That's how you prevent another emergency. By waking up. What's the story I'm living in? What's the story I'm telling? Let me stop getting sucked into the movie of the world and forgetting I'm in a movie and discover what it means to me. Okay, it happens in relationships, all in every area, in industries. You might have, some of you that are in the tech world, you might have heard of a thing called the SaaS apocalypse, which is, it's a current events. Speaking of current events, and what SaaS means, software as a service. So basically, AI is eating software, or at least so they fear. And it's a SaaS apocalypse because the truth that these companies are overcharging and they're trying to endlessly rent stuff to you so you can never own anything, and the gig is up to some degree. So this language is showing up in the world. And when you start hearing these words in the world more, or you start hearing religious people calling that the Armageddon is coming and Jesus is coming back or whatever, you better believe we're in an apocalypse. And again, that's not something to be upset about. That's something to get excited about. What has been hidden is being revealed. And it's something to prepare for and plan for, because an Armageddon will follow. Models of your life, of the world, structures and systems will have to be dismantled, disintegrated. There will be a disappointment before there's a new appointment, a disintegration before there's a reintegration. The Jews were freed from Pharaoh and Egypt only to find themselves in a desert with sand up their crotch and kvetching all day long. And they're like, this is freedom? As Janis Joplin said, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. And the promised land was a desert. Why? Because there's nothing there yet, just promise, just potential. And so there was a disintegration. And a lot of them were like, we want to go back. We get 3 square meals, even if we're slaves. It's better than what this is. And that's really what's going on in us evolutionary. So we'd rather hold on to that story, including our own. This is that collective ego and our personal ego. Hold on to that story and then tell a story about why that's the best story, or why there's nothing else we can do. You don't understand, Derek. I'm sick. I'm broke. I don't have enough money in my bank. My husband, my wife, my kids, the government. I'm on welfare. Okay. That's a really, really powerful story you're telling yourself to keep you stuck in an old story, right? How's that working for you? But underneath it, it's the understanding, the soul knowing, shit, this is going to be interesting. I have to go on an adventure. And an adventure, by definition, means you do not come home the same. But let me ask you an honest question. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want a bigger, better life? Don't you want to be more of who you are? More loving, more awake, more inspired, more creative, productive, more connected, more. Glory to greater glory, world without end. I would imagine you do. If you don't, okay. If it's working, it's working. Okay, so that's the apocalypse report. We'll be talking about specific things and examples around that and go into specific headlines in future episodes and stuff. But I want you right now, and we'll do the apocalypse report. We'll have the trigger happy episode. We'll, through the lens of the divine or the life code readings, because there's a life code in you. Your wounds have wisdom. Your pain has purpose. There's a life code in you. Your life, the workshop you've been living is the one you're meant to be giving. And that's all of us, whether it's literally a workshop or something else. Your life has been preparing you for that. But that's not the story most people have, right? I've been betrayed, abandoned, lied, cheated, sick, whatever. And that story keeps you unconscious to the deeper story and your true life code. Some of you have gone through that work with me. So we'll touch on that as well, and other things like that. But right now, again, if you haven't already, just drop in the chat, what is your view, your perspective on all of this? What are some of the topics that are urgently important to you going on in the world, right? There's political and government collapse of trust. Well, what's being revealed there? It's a system we built for an earlier era of human development that's no longer adequate for this one. So maybe you have some issues around that, right? And again, in that example, the crisis is not capital G government. It's not the capital G government is failing. Government as an ideal never fails. But it's the old story or concept of what a government is and what it's for that's being exposed, the corruption, broken ideas, et cetera, being revealed. But rather than just get rid of the government, it's just like with relationships. Your relationship, a long-term relationship, will go through many breakups. You better hope so. Or it will become so brittle and fragile, it'll just fall all apart at once. Just like you have to clear a forest of the deadwood on a regular basis. And it'll have a series naturally of forest fires and different storms. That's not bad. If that doesn't happen, then one lightning strike could burn the whole forest down. So that's a different story that gives you a different perspective. And so you don't just leave the person because you're in a moment of transition, although maybe you do. You don't just quit your job because it's really hard, or give up on your business or dreams or goals because you're in a threshold. And the threshold feels like, this isn't working. I hate it. I hate you. I hate me. This sucks. This is unfair. I'm overwhelmed. I'm burned out. This must be a sign. I need to quit. I need to leave. No, not necessarily. You have to ask, what do I really want most deep down? And it's a sign you are living in a worldview and a concept of relationship, of yourself, of work, of whatever, that is now run its course. It's like a phase of a rocket, and you keep it attached, and now it's burning dirty fuel. It's run its course. And it doesn't mean you quit, you break up, you leave. You guys have heard me, those are part of my community, tell the stories of, working at a job and getting fired 3 times. And I was outgrowing it each time until I had to kick me out, because I was now ready to blossom in a different dimension, or a different domain rather. And I did. But the growth happened while I was in the job that sucked. And then I turned it into a job where I felt like I was living my destiny. I changed my character and my story. So again, post in the chat. And again, this is, with all the dimensions and domains, economic stuff, racism, cultural identity wars, all of this stuff. This is not, the wars and the cultural race and the different countries, East versus West, all these things. What it's really showing us is that the problem is the story. You understand? We have a story that is not big enough to include the differences. What is our body? The body is a story. And it's got all kinds of competing organs and functions and actions. Like, what does a heart have to do with a liver, with lungs, with kidneys? They're all sovereign, doing their thing. They're all different countries with different values, with different needs. But over time, we've evolved so that there's a story, there's a pattern that includes and shows the interconnectedness and interdependence of all of it. And what happens if a cell decides, fuck you, heart, or fuck the body, I got my own story? It becomes cancer. At the very least, it dies. And at the worst, it becomes a zombie cell or cancer. So, and that is, of course, as many of you understand, mind, body, that often also is an expression of the stories that we hold. And our body manifests that, just like our body of affairs manifests the story we're living. Okay? So again, I won't go into all this today, but I want you to get a sense, whether it's religion, war, politics, these are not out there. And here's the other reason why this is so important. A lot of spiritual people and heart-centered people, they don't want to hear about any of that stuff, right? They avoid all the news. It's negative, and all that. And I understand why. But what that's really doing is shrinking yourself, okay? And it's because you're triggered and there's trauma and you have judgment and shadows and you're righteous and pious and whatever it is, but understand you're diminishing, limiting, contracting, and hurting yourself to a degree if you're just avoiding, okay? Now, I'm not saying have a constant feed of, negative news. Don't, as a matter of fact. First, get this foundation under you. There's plenty of news in your little life. The news of your sibling, the news of this, that, and the other. There's plenty that gets to you naturally, but you got to work with it and build the resilience, build the strength and the capacity to interpret it. And then you can expand what you let in, because you'll have the strength to see through it to the truth, right? Okay, so we'll get into that with these will be different segments and things we'll play during, each episode. And we'll also, get ultimately then do the deeper work, Okay, here's a topic, or here's a headline, or here's a story in your life, and excavate what's underneath it. Like just right now, even as we're in this right now, just post in the chat what belief about your world, about the world, or just about your life are you holding on to, and you have some awareness that it's creating contraction or pain. And maybe on some awareness, you got to let go of it. And just for the sake of today, think about the stories of the world that are triggering you. The story of, what this race or that gender or that politician or that, maybe, just so that there's something charged, and just post that in the chat. And I really want to encourage all of you. I see a lot of the same people posting, and some of you can't, and some of you don't want to, and that's fine. But I encourage you to, for the sake of you and your engagement and your opening and expansion, and getting some support from me, as well as to support the others and seeing how other people think and feel, because we are story weaving even in the chat. And you're beginning to see the different stories. I want you to begin to look at people's comments. I'm not asking you to coach anybody, but just notice as you read comments where you start to see the signal, ooh, there's a story there. Ooh, there's another story there. Ooh, that's a different story, right? Yeah, like even this Caroline, saying, and I don't know if you're saying this as a story or if this is what you believe, it should be different. We are better than this, humanity. That's a story. Now, notice, just as a quick thing, and I know you guys are posting what you're triggered with. Is that true? Is that 2 + 2 = 4? Or could that be 2 + 2 = 3? It should be different. Should it? How's that story working for you? How do you feel when you think something should be different than it is? Do you feel expanded? More juice? Sure, you can post Bible verse. You can post whatever you want. Just be constructive, be respectful, always. But I want your honest opinions, your raw, honest feedback and feelings. This is not about being Pollyanna or polite or even spiritual. It's about being real and authentic. That's how we get to the core. But just I was using that example of Caroline, it should be different. Whenever you find a should, you're shitting all over yourself. And again, it's not about right or wrong. It's like, how does that feel? That's the first level. Honor the feeling, honor where you're at, and ask what's the bigger story under that. And if you go down deeply, you'll see the projection of this should be different, or the world should be different, or we're better than that. As you go deeper, you'll see there's pain, there's shame or guilt, there's fear, there's scar tissue, there's trauma. Even further, there's a time in your life where, your parent did something wrong, did you wrong, made you hurt, abandoned you. And all of this is a recapitulation of a childhood wound and trauma that has created a story. And it's that little painful child, that little wounded part of you, that is the one that has the mic right now telling the story. And again, no judgment, hold that precious child. But again, cause and effect, physics. Whenever you should anything, you are not going to create the outcome you think. You understand? Okay. And the thing about, the one of the segments, also will be signal in the noise. So we're learning to discern. I call it living by insight, not eyesight. That might actually been stolen from Michael Beckwith too. I can't remember. But in any case, living by insight, not eyesight. As I like to think of it, it's like your internal dashboard. Like in a plane, you learn instrument flying, where you got to fly by the dashboard. You can't see out the windshield because you're being clouds a lot. And you have to be able to fly even when you can't see. And in this world right now, we're drowning in so much information and we're starving for meaning, right? We think that more information will lead to more truth. It doesn't. More information doesn't lead to more truth. It buries the truth. Okay? So you have to get better at listening for the signal. Now, again, what's the signal? It triggers you. It pushes or pulls you. It makes you mad, sad, whatever. Lifts you up, expands, excited. There's some juice there. Okay, that's a signal. Now the signal, as you're interpreting it, doesn't mean that's the truth, but it is signal. Okay, so even if it's like and you want to troll somebody, you don't just brush that off. You're like, oh, that's an interesting signal. Let me get curious. Right? So you want to get good at that now, because again, remember, most news media is calibrated to your nervous system, not your wisdom. Right? Think about it. How much news out there is and media is designed and calibrated for you to get wiser? You might become a wise ass, myself included, but and pretty righteous, but you don't have real wisdom. It's not designed. It's designed to hijack your nervous system, keep you reacted, engaged, anxious. And the flood of information makes you feel powerless and out of control. And then you just acquiesce to any signal, give me anything, or you tune out. Okay? So we'll get into that too. But you have an inner dashboard. You want to start to get good at feeling your feelings, but not getting trapped in it. Your feeling about something isn't the truth. It's telling you your belief or your best guess about something. That's it. It's not the truth, but it is a guider. It is a navigation tool. And so if you're stuck in feelings and you always, well, you need to know my feelings and you're not, accepting my feelings and I need to have my feelings. Okay. But okay, and then what? Right? What you see online in the media and mostly in the world is everybody just being driven by emotions. That's called emotional reasoning. It's a cognitive disorder. Doesn't mean emotion bad. It just means emotion is what it is. Energy in motion. It's a thought that has become, that is condensated, or what's the opposite of condensated? It's like, ice becoming water, becoming steam, or steam getting condensed again into ice or water. So that thought becomes a feeling. So you trace your feeling back to what's the voice behind the feeling. You'll begin to discern the thoughts. Now, the thought is also not the truth. Don't believe what you think, right? Don't believe what I say, certainly, but don't believe what you think. That's just your best guess at reality. And often, as we said earlier, it's distorted by what you're looking from, where you're looking through, and what you're looking for. You're starting to get how this all stacks. You're like, these feelings, just feelings, but they're pointing to a deeper, or a thought, a belief. Let me discern what the belief is. That's not the truth, no matter how certain I am. In fact, the more certain I am, the more likely it's not true. And then now I've got a belief, not a truth. Again, it doesn't mean it's bad. It might still be useful, but it is just a tool. It's a utility for now. And in many cases, those beliefs behind those feelings that make up a story are not useful. They're coming from old wounds. As I said, you're recapitulating the same story, different day. But if you just take the time, go through that, journal about it, connect with others here, reach out to each other, find accountability, support, whatever. We want to build a community here so you can get supported. And obviously, over time, ask me questions and I'll help you to discern this as well. You will the whole thing will start to unfold, the matrix. And you'll notice this body, mental, emotional, physical body, is an avatar. Again, that's not good or bad. It is what it is. It's an avatar. And the content of my consciousness is the program. And it's getting interpreted, and it shows up as a neurochemical reaction, emotion. Behind that, there's a thought. Behind that, there's a story, and the whole program reveals itself. And that program was installed not consciously by me, but installed from experience and survival. And often with a core wound, and the core wound, not often, always, pretty much, the core wound means the lie you had to believe about life or yourself to survive. It's served. And if your life's not thriving and continuing to grow, expand, and unfold, and you're triggered and pushed and pulled, you're still living from the lie that has created a story. And the chronic challenge means you've been trying to survive in a story of yourself in the world that no longer works. Make sense? Now, a couple questions I'll add here, and then I'm going to go through more of your questions and a little more Q&A and stuff before we wrap up today. There's some questions you can ask as you begin to look at the headlines in your life or in the world. First, as I just said, notice your feelings, your thoughts, write it down, what's going on, and then you can ask. Just ask. You don't remember, the question is the quest you're on. It's not the answer. It's the quest, right? I like to say kids are happy, healthy, and free, and adults are old and sick and miserable because kids have only questions and adults have only answers. So the answer won't get you where you want to go. It's just a signpost. The quest, the question. That's what you want to be interested in. So one question, what is being revealed here? Another question, what is it asking of us or of me? Now notice, I'm not telling you what the answer is. It's like, okay, well, this is my headline. Okay. Ask the question, what is being revealed? And sit with it. And you also know that as the answers come, you also now have the beginnings of the ability to discern the difference between a reactive response, something that has utility, versus something that is more contractive. But you just ask the question. It's a better question versus, why are they doing that? What's wrong with them? They should be. That's not a good statement, and those aren't good questions. What is being revealed is a better question, right? What is it asking of us and me is a better question. Like Kennedy asked, not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Better question, right? We live in an age now, it's all about what everybody can do for us. The age of entitlement. And we're creating weaker and weaker people. So what is it asking of us, of me? Another question, what wants to emerge on the other side of this? That begins to activate insight, vision. What wants to emerge on the other side of this? I know this looks bad right now, but what wants to emerge on the other side of this? And who would I or we be if it did? So what is being revealed? What is it asking of us, me? What wants to emerge on the other side of this? And who would I or we be if it did? Now, to go on the quest you're on, the question, you don't just ask it, wait for 2 seconds, there's nothing. And that's what many of you do. Okay, I've sat with many of you. You gotta go on the quest. You gotta ask it and really care about the answer. I don't mean force it, but sit with it. Like the greatest inventors and scientists, they asked a question. They turned it into a hypothesis and they sat with it, sometimes their whole life. And then they got the answer and then they won a Nobel Prize or they did something. So you got to be willing to sit with it. And it's very uncomfortable. And remember also, it's the quest you're on, the question. That quest, that adventure, when you get the answer, really get it, you're not the same person. In other words, the person that asks is not the person who fully receives. When you pray and you get an answer to that prayer, if it's real, you're not the same person. The one that prays is not the one that receives. The one that really goes on the quest, that really asks the question and gets an answer, which is not just intellectual. Oh, A plus B equals C. No, the real answer changes you. It requires you to, here's the thing, what's in the way of the answer? All the things you think you will die if you let go of those beliefs. All the things you think you'll lose if you dare to see the truth about yourself or someone else. You get it? So it's not like life is holding back the answers. It's that you are holding yourself back from them, because to see is to be free, but first to be annihilated. Parts of you will have to go, right? And so you got to be willing to sit with the question, and it will bring shit up. But it will eventually, it's roto-rootering you so that more of what's real and true, by the time you get the full answer, you will be a new person. And then finally, how can I live from that place? That what wants to emerge? Who would I be? Now, how can I begin to live from that place? Bring that future self into the present moment. What would I focus on? What would I do? How would I think? What thoughts would I focus on and not? What actions would I take and stop? What conversations would I be in and not? That's becoming the change based on the new emerging vision or story that started with a headline in your life or in the world. Can you see the arc there? By the way, this is how, the greatest, again, scientists, inventors, whatever, and even activists like Dr. King. Dr. King was able to do what he did partly, and of course he wasn't alone. There was a lot of help, because he asked a bigger question and he got a bigger answer. He went to the mountaintop. Einstein was able to do what he did because he didn't just try to conform to the world of science as we knew it. He went on flights of fancy and thought experiments, asked bigger questions, and caught something that didn't even fit into the model. Then he backtracked and he became the person that could build the model, that could run the experiment, that could prove the theory. And that's how it works. It's again why he said you can't solve a problem at the level of thinking that created it. You got to ask a bigger question, discover a bigger story, and then become the character in that story. Is this making sense? Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Did y'all post something in the chat about what the story of the headline is for you? And by the way, the opposite of this, as I said before, is conspiracy thinking, reaction. It's a reaction story. It's a paranoid story. You want to release paranoia and embrace pronoia. Pronoia is the belief that the world is out for you. The world is not out to get you. It's out to help you. That's pronoia. Or even eventually then metanoia. And metanoia is the process of completely changing how you see the world. So you can be paranoid, or you can have paranoia. The life's against me, they're against me, the world is out to get me, the world's a dangerous and unsafe place. Or you can have pronoia, the world is for me, the world is out to help me, life is conspiring for me. Everywhere I go, I meet with love and support, and ultimately all of life is conspiring for me to flourish and flower. And then the process of metanoia, which is I'm going to keep up-leveling my story in how I see the world. Yes? So I'm going to pause there. There's a lot more I could say. I'm going to look at some of these chats now, and I said I wanted to go no more than 2 hours, and we might even get this down to 90 minutes. But I'm just going to see if I can go through some of the responses. Actually, give me one sec, guys. It's going to lower. Give me one sec. If you'll bear with me. Where am I? How do I do this? Different technology. I'll be right back. I know this is bad TV. I have to edit that out. I just need to lower my desk. All right. Okay, so let's see here. And again, I please ask you to like and subscribe. And afterwards, click on the videos, watch other videos, share it with a friend, help to spread this good news if you believe in it. It's not just good news, the idea of good news versus bad news. It's real news. It's what's really new, what's really emerging. Let me just look through here and see what are some of the questions I can. How often are the live streams? Right now, they're planned for once a week, and there may be so there'll be another one next week, and there may be a pause. But maybe I think we're doing it. I have 3 weeks right now scheduled, and then might be a pause. We'll see if I can figure out a way to do it still, because I'll be in a different teaching another class, but at this time, so I might just make it a different time. Let's see. What is that? Problems. Oh, that I can just do that. Okay. Problems wanting answers for is all these technology invasions of privacy, companies selling people information, phone apps. It's like we don't have privacy. So yeah, so like this is a fact, K-stars. And what you want to do is you want to look at it and go, okay, so this is how I feel. This you got me, and write it out a little bit more and look at how does that story make you feel? Because yes, I talked about this system. It's not designed to liberate you. It's designed to entrap and imprison you. Yes, but notice I'm saying that in the context of a larger story. I'm not like, fuck the man, I'm not angry at them. I'm not mad at Facebook or whoever's doing whatever they're doing. I'm able to see the facts and see them as they really are, not worse than they are, but also hold what they are seeking to become, what's behind the scene. So notice in this statement, if you can notice, it's got contraction, it's got tension, it's angry or mad or sad or scared about what these people are doing. If that's true for you, just notice. And for anybody else, notice where you might feel that. And then get curious. Why would that? Some of you might go, well, no, man, we can't put our head in the sand. This is true. They're doing this to us and our children, and we got to stop them. I understand. But how's that working for you? Right? So you want to look at that story and ask, what's the bigger thing trying to emerge here? What's the pronoia version of this story? And then get metanoic and actually look at what would be a story that could allow me to notice the facts, but actually be expanded and inspired by them. Like, here's the problem, but what's the solution? And again, if the solution makes me feel angry and contracted, you haven't touched the solution yet. Doesn't mean you can't have emotion, but I want you guys to learn how to see this, even in the comments, how to begin to read these. Again, and I want you to comment. There's no judgment. We all are doing this, but this will help you notice these thoughts you take for granted, these things you're believing, and the stories you're telling that are actually hurting and not helping you or anybody. Yeah, like Hentibra, you said you stopped listening about the Iran war, felt tense, worried, on edge. Understandable. And again, I don't want you guys to just like open up the spigot and just start beer bonging, the news media. And but if it's making you feel tense, worried, and edgy, that's telling you something about you. Now, granted, sometimes, you're fine, but if, somebody just slowly gives you paper cuts all over your body, eventually you're going to be like, enough, or somebody's just screeching in your ear. It doesn't mean that you have a problem. The fact that you're like, hey, shut up. I don't want to hear that anymore. But just notice what it's triggering in you. Don't just turn it off, because just like you don't just leave the job, or don't just tune out the family member, or don't just quit the relationship or the project because it makes you feel tense, nervous, no. Understand what it's telling you about you. Clean up your side. Then you can notice, okay, I can watch this, or I'm good. I'm done. I don't need that sugar anymore. I've cleaned up my gut biome. Versus I got to like take all the sugar out, not look at sugar, and not because I'm trying to discipline myself, right? That's the problem is your colonies of bacteria in your stomach are craving sugar. So you got to deal with that. It's not the sugar's fault. Okay. You guys, hopefully you're getting the point. Dennis, as my friend says, should be called bad news. Yeah, but it's not bad news. Yes, it's talking, CNN, constant negative news. And yes, a lot of it's just nonsense, for sure. But it's also a mirror. It's a prayer request. It's an invitation, and for some, an initiation to know yourself, to excavate, to get liberated from your own stories of lack, limitation, worry, doubt, fear, and separation, which it's a projection of. Okay? Just calling it bad is a cop-out for your own evolution. Okay? Can you say if we meditate and learn to more letting be, this is the inside out, just observe instead of reacting. Okay, so this, if we meditate, learn to more and more let it be and just observe instead of reacting, interpreting, we can go beyond the filter and see reality. That's certainly a part of it. Yeah, meditation, the process of, the way Buddha taught it on one hand, really Jesus and Buddha taught similar, but they from a different perspective. Jesus more feminine, Buddha more masculine, more embodied, somatic with Jesus, perhaps more mental with Buddha, but not entirely, is observing. Real meditation is the process of single-pointed observation in order to reclaim dominion of your own attention. The only thing we have control over is our attention. Everything is downstream of attention. Energy flows where attention goes. And where energy flows, it produces thoughts, feelings, actions, and conditions. So attention is the only point of control. The whole argument about free will starts with where you put your attention. Now, meditation is to get your attention back, right? It's not to go down rabbit holes and see lights and disappear and come back forgetting everything and say, wow, I went so deep. No, you didn't. You fell asleep. You went unconscious. Meditation is you observe what's arising. You notice, first you practice with your breath in some way, sometimes a mantra, and that allows you to stabilize your attention. And now you can witness. Ooh, look at that feeling arising. And you know that you're the observer and that is the object of observation. You are consciousness or the container, and that is content. That thought, that feeling, that sensation is not I. It is the content of my consciousness. It's pattern, it's story, otherwise been called karma. And as you observe it, whatever is not real, if you're not reacting to it, it starts to dissolve. You are reclaiming your energy, and because you're not feeding it, it starts to wither and die, sometimes fast, sometimes over a period of time. If it's not real, it starts to break down. The samskaras, the scar tissue, the stories, the beliefs, but it takes practice, because when you start to do that, you're going to see it's a shit show in there. It's a circus. It's monkey mind. And there's a lot of emotional material and content that's been repressed by actions and addictions and compulsive behaviors. As you slow down and become mindful, it's a purification process that starts. This is what Vipassana is, if you've ever been on those long meditation retreats. It's a purification. It's deep surgery. So yes, very, very powerful way to start dissolving the Maya, the illusion, the dream, the story. And then what emerges in glimpses and sometimes dramatically is the newer, truer story, or just glimpses of reality, a moment of joy, peace, satorai. And then that will congeal into a new concept or belief. Again, remember, that's how it keeps going. to some degree, until and unless your ego completely collapses, as some people have claimed has happened to them, like Eckhart Tolle, and perhaps it's true. But so meditation is absolutely powerful that way and very valuable. The challenge is it's very challenging. It's all of this is challenging. But why I like to start from here, if you're not a meditator, is you can work with your mind and start dismantling and reinterpreting. And yes, to some degree, you're just swapping one illusion for another. It's increasingly aligned with reality, principally speaking. And then as that happens, your system starts to have more space, more resilience, and you will more easily be able to sit and observe the content of your consciousness. But yes, absolutely, meditation is it's probably the most powerful technology we have. I'm not sure about the 144K, Hentibra. Are you just talking about the critical mass of a certain number of people, a percentage of the population, then they automatically phase shift. And that comes also from physics, where a certain number of subatomic particles line up together, they all shift into the next phase. And that's real. And this has been proven with meditators and other people going into cities and they have a critical mass and you see crime drop and all these things. But then when they leave the city, the crime goes back up again because it hasn't been actually instantiated into that environment, into the systems and the structures and embodied in the people. Yes, K-Star, we need to change the collective story, but we have to change it one by one at first. However, for those of you that are teachers, thought leaders, artists, singers, authors, etc., this is again the power of a new story, the power of a new myth, the power of a new movie, book, music. This is why music and movies and stories and books and all those things are extremely important, and why we have to keep that. Because if we don't, AI is going to take that. And AI, as it is right now, isn't an embodied consciousness. It doesn't have individuality. It mostly resorts to the mean and cliche, and it's not going to tell a new story unless you work with it to tell a new story, which means there's a human involved. But yes, we have to do it one by one, and as you do it, your creations and your art and all of that will become a powerful lever to accelerate the process. Dennis here is a professional musician as well, and he's doing that with his art. And many of you are doing that in your own way. The other thing is, if you are a creator, if you're writing books, stories, or even or music, or if you just take and make a list of your favorite music, your favorite movies, your favorite stories, your favorite books, all of that is a mirror. And often it's telling you, if you read it, you'll see the themes that keep recapitulating, and you'll begin to see a biography of your own life. And you'll begin to see your own story. We're attracted to the stories that we resonate with. Now, the very best storytellers, or at least the Shakespeares, or the most revolutionary storytellers, there's all the stuff there, sex, violence, and rock and roll, because that's where we live, or most of us, the conflict. But then those stories, they get you in that way, but then they take you on a journey, whereas the character and the situation transforms, it transforms you, or at least it calls you to that transformation. That's the possibility. By the way, that is the original reason I started my company called Emerging Edge Media, and why I'm doing this, to find other ways, and why I also write movies and I write novels as well as nonfiction books. It's always been a vision and a dream to have a multimedia conscious company that is producing film, TV, music, movies, books, programs, but from this greater vision, these fundamental principles, so that even though they're dramatic and exciting and sexy and cool and hip and all those cool things, because they meet humans where humans are, they ultimately can open their eyes, uplift, expand. And some of the greatest movies do this, right? Groundhog Day did this, The Matrix did this, Star Wars did this, etc. The Wizard of Oz, and there's a lot more, obviously. Let's see. Okay. Just give me while I'm going through there. Oh, Hentibra, this is good. So Hentibra is saying, posting from California. California? Is that where you're at? Are you in California, Hentibra? What's getting me triggered most recently are cliche statements like walk for peace, dance for peace, and you're not peaceful. Yeah. So you just tell those granola crunching MFs. No, I'm just kidding. So that's a good thing, right? It's like I was once going to do a video of like a religious gathering. Everybody's like, "Hey, brother, how you doing, brother? Peace be with you. God bless." And then have like little thought bubbles or little the trans or the interpretation of what they're really thinking. It's like, "Hey, brother," and the interpretation is like, it's like all negative shit. It's like, "Screw you, man. Who do you think you are?" And I want to sleep with your wife and whatever. It's like all the real stuff going on. And whenever I'm working with somebody as a coach and I start to hear them go, "Well, I know all of life is for me and God is good. And no, I really believe," and that's the moment I poke and say, "Bullshit." I'm called bullshit on that. Whenever you find yourself needing, especially spontaneously, to use aphorisms and affirmations, and it's often to cover up what you really think and feel. There's a right place to use affirmations and to dance for peace and to walk for peace, no doubt. But you might first have to dance an angry dance. You just got to make sure you're not dancing for peace to try to like trample down the shadows and the fear and the pain and the judgment, because that won't produce peace in the long run. And I think that's what you're getting at, Hentibra. Obviously, it's important to do positive, and every morning I play a soundtrack of really awesome positive songs, no matter whether I feel like it or not, and it does tune me in, and I've built that habit to start my day off that way. So you can have rituals, but if you're noticing that it's triggering you, you want to ask, what's the judgment? This is the trigger happy section, although we won't go into it all today. What's the judgment I have about those people? Honestly, raw, like fucking hippies, whatever it is. And for those of you that, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on YouTube. I think I am. I hope they don't cancel me for that. And if they do, they're the problem. You want to acknowledge what's the trigger, and what is that? What are you making it mean about them, or what are you afraid it means about you? And you'll get a judgment, and that judgment, liars, or like you said, dishonest, fraud, fake, BS, shallow, whatever. Those are shadows, and they are parts of you. You want to then go through the shadow process, which we'll go into in a future episode. But for those of you that are not part of the community or you haven't heard it, you can go to my site, Derek Rydall, DerekRydall.com, and go into the free training section. And at the bottom there's a shadow training. So if you just come up with one of these judgments, you can go download that training and immediately, like a 15-minute guided meditation, and get introduced to that shadow part of you. And it will help you integrate that. And you'll start to notice that, because you'll get less triggered. And ultimately, on the other side of this, Hentibra, is the end of you just being a good girl and a nice person and really reclaiming your power. Okay? Let's see. I already went through that one. Robert's clown comment. Yeah, and as Tom's saying, how to deal with upsetting situations without getting upset, right? That's obviously the ultimate outcome. But I want you to again notice. I want you guys to notice what's not so obvious about this comment. And if we had more time, I would have you comment on the comment. But notice what you're trying to do, Tom. You're trying to not be upset, because underneath that is a judgment, is shame, is guilt, is fear. Probably because you grew up in an environment with a really upset parent, or they had outbursts, or a sibling, they were angry, they were fighting, and or you got the message that angry men are toxic or something. So you got that and you decided, I won't be an angry man. I won't be upset. I'll be a conscious man or a good man or a balanced man or have equanimity or whatever, all of which are good, but it's only one half of the Tao. It's only one half of the circuit. A circuit has a positive and negative charge. You can't just get the positive. That will give you no charge. It's a broken circuit. Being upset isn't a problem. It's a signal. And if you can't be upset, you are in repression. And you will also repress others unconsciously, whatever. But most importantly for you, and you will judge others that are, being too upset or out of control or angry or inappropriate. So you want to notice, what's the judgment? What do you make it mean about people that just get so triggered and reactive and upset? And or would you make it mean about you, or do you when you get triggered, angry, and upset? That's your shadow. And there's probably more than one. You want to, and again, this is all based on a story. The way to be successful in the world and to be loved is to be a good man. And a good man is a man that isn't upset about things, who's strong and stoic and whatever. I'm just making up a story. That's a story, right? And it makes, remember, Adam and Eve fell into history, his story. They didn't actually, but that's the fall of the human consciousness into polarity, good and evil, right and wrong, should and shouldn't, upset versus peaceful, false polarity, okay? Jesus didn't just go into the money changers, the temple and say, excuse me, can we all just pause and pray? Do we really have to sell things in the temple? Come on, guys. No, he cracked a whip, get the F out of here, turned over money changers' tables. He got downright pissed off. And he says in another statement, I did not come to bring peace, but I came with a sword. And he said, be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. So you can love your neighbor, but you don't have to take their shit. You don't want to be a doormat. You want to be a welcome mat. So you want to embrace both of these sides. They're not opposites. They're part of a complete circuit. Just like you don't just go around breathing out because I don't want to be selfish, take anybody else's oxygen, because that's selfish. That's mean. That's white privilege, or something. Taking all the oxygen, you'll die and you won't do anybody any good. You got to breathe in and you got to breathe out. You got to take and you got to give. Make sense? Okay. I'm just touching on these briefly. In Santa Barbara, my partner has dementia and it may lead to Alzheimer's. And I have fear about that. I understand. I really do. These are real challenges, and I understand that because I even have some of these things in my genetic family and in my genes and stuff, and so I've had to deal with some of this, concerns, and it's very much in the news right now. It's kind of like a big topic. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of causes underlying it, medically, food, diet, that's producing increases of these experiences. But on the most personal level, remember, understanding the story we're telling and asking, is this life affirmative, doesn't mean we won't experience difficult times and experiences. I lost my son, and there's no getting him back, at least in that form. That happened. And other things. I've had my entire fortune stolen from me. And so it doesn't mean magic, there will be no more challenges. Jesus was a pretty enlightened dude. He still got nailed to a cross. But what it does do is it gives us a larger context, and we're looking for that story. We're looking for that context sometimes. What's the story I can tell about this particular potential disease, challenges? First of all, what is the story I'm telling? Because you're telling a story that's making you afraid. And again, totally normal and understandable, at least as a human in this world. But fear, other than pure instinctual fear, is always pointing to a lie that we're believing. Now, not a lie necessarily in terms of the facts, but a lie in terms of the bigger possible truth. And so that lie, we want to discover, what is the lie? She's going to get sicker, and then she's going to forget me, and then she's going to become a burden on me, or I'm going to be so alone and lonely and sad, and I'm going to lose her, and I'm going to lose the love, and she's going to die, and it's going to cost a lot of money. Whatever the details are, you want to write that out unabashedly, honestly. Don't be nice. Don't be spiritual. Don't be affirmative. Just tell the truth with a little t as you honestly believe it. And then start to see, what is the bigger arc of the belief there? I'm powerless. She's powerless. I'm going to lose love. And as I found out with my son later, as I did this work, one day I was walking and I was grieving, and then all of a sudden this voice dropped in and said, when the form that held your love is shattered, the love is not lost, it's liberated. And suddenly the love was shattered out of the form of Father and Son, and I experienced the love of the Father and the Son, this archetypal love that was shattering me and expanding my capacity for love and compassion. I still miss my son dearly. I still cry about it. I still grieve. But this bigger story, this truer story, has increased my capacity of resilience, of grit, of love, of compassion. It takes a lot to get me to not love you. In fact, so far, nobody succeeded. It takes a lot to get me to not forgive you. So far, nobody succeeded, at least in the last 15 years or so, and increasingly. And my capacity it's increased my capacity to see beyond the forms of what people are doing, including myself, and have love and compassion. So that's one example. So hidden inside this very, very painful and sometimes tragic condition is still the seed of a larger story and a truth that really will make you freer and potentially even her. And again, I say that with the both balance, if somebody came to me right after my son died and said, there's a bigger truth here, man, I might have just been like, fuck you. And that's also legitimate. But because I was committed to the deeper story, to the bigger story, I've worked through that. Same with losing all my money. And now I have a lot more. Not because, I'm just so smart about money, but because I changed the story. I got a bigger story. I hope that helps, brother. Keep sharing. Yeah, I already did that one. Practical. Yeah, Cherry, the us versus them mentality seems everywhere now. And it's not a great story. It might have worked, there was evolutionarily, there was an important value to the discernment between enemy and ally before we had certain laws and rules and structures, because they would have just killed you or you would have just killed them. Just like there was a value to discern between this berry good, this berry bad. This berry will give you nourishment, this berry will poison you. So again, we're saying love your enemy. We're not saying have lunch with them necessarily. We're not saying condone their behavior. We're just saying get curious, right? There's something deeper going on. There's something bigger going on that if you could only understand it more, you would be free first. Remember, not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison and expecting them to get sick. So first you get free, and then you become an agent of freedom. You become a light in the world. But you can't be a light if you're spewing darkness, okay? Great, Joe Marie, working from New Zealand, shifting your identity. Hopefully this is helping you, Robert. The Clown Hotel. That's right, Robert. Check into the Clown Hotel. Yes, okay, so some great comments. Let's see. Great, Sylvia. Great. So I can see a lot of you resonating and doing the work. So Inside Out says, I'm concerned about the young people. And I know this is going a bit long. You guys know I go long, but I'm getting better at doing things shorter. But I think for the inaugural episode, I want to try to get to some of these questions. I'm concerned about the young people who have burnout or depression on a young age, and I come from being misunderstood and rejected over and over and learning to understand and accept and love myself. So this is a great statement, maybe with a question hidden in it. Like, what do we do about young people who have burnout and depression at a young age? But what I want you to notice in here is implicit in this question is a projection. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not young people depressed, burned out. It's true. The loneliness epidemic, the meaning crisis, addiction, suicidality, it's the facts. And there's an arc, and you can trace a lot of it to social media. But notice why this concerns you. It's also hidden in the next statement. I come from being misunderstood and rejected over and over. So when you see these poor young people burned out, depressed, I want you to begin to notice that part of you is triggered by that and worried about that because they are a proxy for that young, depressed, rejected, misunderstood part of you. Can you see that? And that's not a bad thing. That's using the mirror for what it's for. It doesn't mean you don't do anything for these young people, but it means the first young person you need to help is the young person inside of you. And notice what that story is. Now, you also note the result of feeling that caused you to learn to understand and accept yourself and love yourself. Absolutely. Great. That's the core initiation that is embedded in the core wound. You had to build all these capacities to love and see and understand yourself, to hold yourself together. Now, that's good, but as you can see here, it's possibly still resonant or active to some degree, which again is normal. Now, this also shows you where your life code is hidden, which we just touched on today, but we'll get into future episodes, which is, again, the workshop you've been living is the one you're meant to be giving. The belief you believed when you were misunderstood, rejected, and even the story that you were misunderstood and rejected, you got to start questioning that. But underneath all of that, you've learned, developed, and embodied wisdom in the wounds and purpose in the pain. And that's the workshop you've been living. And there's some way or in some form or fashion, you ultimately are meant to turn that poison and have into medicine and share that in some way with the world. But the best way will be to continually make sure and check yourself. Is there some way in which I'm seeing these young people in a lacking and limited agency light? Like I'm seeing them as a victim and now I'm going to help them, or somebody needs to help them. Because as thou seest, so thou beest. You can't help a person if you see them as a victim. There was a study, Pygmalion, in the classroom where they told the teacher, these kids are like the low-ranking kids. These kids are the high-scoring kids. These kids are just the average. And they had 3 different classes. And at the end of a semester or a year, the ones that were, below average, they were doing below average scores. The ones that were average were doing average scores. The ones that were above average were getting above average scores. Then they revealed to the teachers, all of these kids were randomly selected out of the general population. Meaning, the box the teacher put them in is where the students stuck. So if they put them in a little box, even if they might have been high scorers, they shrunk to fit the little box. If they put them in a big box, even if they were average, they rose to fill the big box. So how we see a person and how we hold them determines at least the extent to which we can have influence over them positively, right? So Jesus couldn't heal anybody if he saw them as sick. And that's why if you read the teachings and stuff, you'll see there's all these moments. He's like, do you want to be healed, dude? Pick up your bed and walk. The lame guy comes with his arm. He's like, what's the problem? What's hindering you? In other words, I don't see a problem. When Lazarus dies, he's like, get all these mourners out of here. You're harshing my buzz. Lazarus, come on, man. Enough of this. Get up. Wake up. So, and there was a healer in the Appalachians some years back. People would come to her with all manner of problems, and she would just go, "Tain't so." So the consciousness of wholeness is what heals. In other words, a better story, right? A better vision, a better concept for ourselves, for each other, for our clients, for the world. I hope that helps. Oh yeah, speaking of my new book, somebody just said that. Hey Tom, I don't know if you're still here. Get the book, guys. If you go to my website, go to derekrydall.com. Oops, where did I go? Whoa, what just happened? Oh, okay, that was me on YouTube. You can opt in once you buy the book, share the information there. You're going to get some free AI tools I developed to be your evolutionary coach and your focus coach. And it's very specific with my teachings and all of this stuff that'll help you. I think I might develop another tool for this very work we're doing today, how to interpret the headlines and see behind the scenes and behind the scene what's the truer story in your life and in the world. That would be a pretty cool, that's actually a good idea. I think I might do that. Live, you just heard it here. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to do a couple more. Let me just see. How about this? I'm going to answer 2 more questions. So anybody that I didn't answer, if you're still here or you're sitting on a burning question or experience and want some insight, post those now and I'll answer those and then we'll wrap this up. I'll give you just a moment to post those. Don't post a manifesto. Take too long to read it. Go ahead and post those now. And by the way, also for the rest of you, can you please post your honest comments, feedback about this experience, about this show, about this topic, about this live stream medium where I can answer your questions and teach. You can go to YouTube and all of that. Share your comments, your questions, your feedback, your ideas for what you want, what would make you want to tune in every week, what would make you want to invite friends. I want to know that because I want to shape it in a way that truly serves you. Okay? So go ahead and post those things too, but let me get to the questions before you do all that. So Caroline's asking, how do we develop the larger consciousness to hold the greater, larger, healed reality strongly enough to work? So that's what I was sharing, Caroline, in those questions. The first thing, it's kind of like going to AA. You have to first admit you're an alcoholic, right? So you have to first admit the story you're telling yourself. You have to get clear. You have to make the implicit story explicit, right? It's like, oh, I actually have this story I'm believing. That's step 1. Because many of you, and in many areas where you're struggling, you think that's just the way it is. No, Derek, you understand, those guys really are assholes. No, Derek, you understand, I really am broke. Whatever. You really think, no, that's just the way it is. Can we talk about the place where it's not? No, that's the place you got to look. Wherever you're certain this is the way it is, and it's not helping you, or it's even hurting you, you want to go there. You want to understand what's the story I'm telling myself. You want to confess. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm addicted to drama. I believe that I'm just worthless. I believe the world is against me. I believe you can never survive as an artist. I believe you have to sell your soul. And that's why I'm so mad at all these billionaire assholes who are, whatever. You got to tell the truth first to yourself about the story you believe that you have heretofore not been willing to let go of. Again, I want to stress, it's not the stories that are helping and working. It's the stories mostly that you are most adamant are reality, and you don't want to let go. And you have a great reason why you can't and shouldn't or should or have to, or that's where you want to look. Now you bust that. And then you go through the questions I said earlier. I won't repeat them all right now. You can go back, listen again, and show up next time, and we'll work through personally for some of you and through some of these different stories, because you got to first bust the lie. And then you got to begin to ask, what's the deeper meaning? What's trying to emerge? What's on the other side? Who would I be? How can I start being that now? Like in a nutshell, right? Again, there's more to it, but that's enough. If you all just did that consistently, your life would change, because your story would change, because you would see the lie and you begin to embody the truth. Pamela's asking, as AI replaces jobs, what do you think is going to happen to the many who become unemployed? Yeah, and I talk about this in my book, and I talk about this in a lot of other trainings. Well, first of all, you have to, so I could answer that question, and that's a bit of a trap, and I almost got caught. But I'll give you an answer quick, but I'll tell you why that's a trap. You know how when somebody asks a question and the person says, I object to the premise of your question? That would be what I would want to do here, and I will. Yes, people will be unemployed. It's going to be a great disruption. I've been talking about this for years. It could even be blood in the streets. There's already been that. People firebombing OpenAI, what's his name? Sam Altman's house, and protesting and I think firebombing, data centers. It's going to get worse. I was just at one of the big graduations that is in the news now, where they booed the CEO of Google, the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, for talking about AI, and it's happening across the country, eventually in the world. And there's talks of UBI, universal basic income, universal basic services, universal high income, high services. All of this is missing the deeper point, which is that we're going to experience, and we already are, again, this is apocalypse and Armageddon, a global identity crisis, which is going to drive us. And here's the bigger story. AI is an existential crisis. It's a meteor heading for Earth. It's going to disrupt and creatively destroy a lot of ways of life. But that's not the true story. That's just the one contextual story. The larger story is why. What's the meaning behind this? What's trying to emerge? As AI can do everything a human can do better, faster, cheaper, which it will eventually, or at least most of the things humans have identified as useful work and activity, as we hit that identity crisis, we will have to ask a different question. Not merely, how do I beat AI? How do I outcompete it? How do I just become better, faster, stronger, smarter, more successful? But what's a human even for, after all? Because if AI can do all of this, then clearly it doesn't need me, as I've formally identified myself. That's the identity crisis. You don't need a human to lift boxes and drive cars anymore. Okay, so what's a human for who thought that was their identity and their livelihood, and they're nothing without it? Increasingly, you don't need humans to do a lot of stuff musically, as we said earlier in the program. So what are all those people that were used to doing all the engineering and all the stuff going to do now? Yes, there'll be some people that will still do it, etc. But increasingly, that's going to be the thing. What we're going to discover is that, again, if we ask the bigger question now, there's a bigger quest. What really is a human for? What really am I for? Because everything has a place. If there's an apple tree, there's no other seed but an apple seed that will become an apple tree and provide the fruit of the apple. But, then there's grapes, and there's kumquats, and there's grapefruits, and there's oranges. And if everybody likes oranges, or a lot of people start liking oranges, the apple would rightfully go, what's an apple tree for? It's still for apples, and it's for apple pie. But if that apple tree, I'm doing a silly anthropomorphic example, if it long ago had bought into the belief that in order to be valued, it had to be an orange tree or a rose bush, and it contorted itself in all manner of ways to try to be that, first of all, it would have been one very bad apple. But that's what we've done as humans. So much of what we do, what we value, what we identify with as what is necessary and what is a human never was who you really are. You're not a cog in a machine. You're not a widget. You're not merely here to be more productive. We've barely touched the surface of who and what we really are and why we are. And the economic industrial revolutions throughout history have further covered up, in some cases, and ultimately revealed in others who we are. And AI is going to be one of the ultimate things where it's going to strip away everything we thought we were, or a lot of it, and reveal, oh, it is for this that I was really born. This is what a human's for. And that's a real utopia. Not, oh, we can just snap our fingers and Ferraris will grow from trees and we, live to be 500 years old and have everything we want for nothing. That's not utopia. That's dystopia. Utopia is humans awakened to who and what they really are and what they're for and flourishing. And ultimately, all the creatures able to live together and flourish. I hope that answers your question. That's a big topic. I might even be writing a new book called What's a Human For? So, in fact, I'm giving a talk in LA in July called What's a Human For? Lolita, where is it? Oh, good, Pamela. Oh, thanks. You guys are just giving me, I was like, is there another question there? And there are some, but you guys are just sharing. Yeah, so just before we go, if you haven't yet, just share your feedback, your comments, ideas for what you think will make this better, what you would love to see. Again, what would make you, not just theoretically, but actually make time? Like, your favorite show, must-see TV. What would make you go, Thursday nights, people, there's people that like 5 o'clock news, or, you have your favorite podcasts or YouTube shows and you tune in. So share with me, what would make you want to tune in every week? And then also what would you need to see, hear, receive? It doesn't mean I'll be able to give it all, but I want to know. And what topics, what ideas, what headlines are you interested in? And what would make you want to share it with a friend, a loved one? In other words, what would make it remarkable, which is to say, worth remarking on? So just take a moment and, that's right. I see that, Dennis. Just share, if you would just do that, share in the chat. And then before you leave, please like and subscribe and maybe go and share it with somebody today. So I'll give you another moment just to share your final comments. Thanks, Robert. Missed you too, brother. So please go ahead and share that. I see a couple comments and there's some more up there. There's still almost 60 of you here. Just share what would make you want to tune, or share below, I will tune in every week. I want to tune into this every week. You've already got what I need. Let me know that too. Or if you only had this, if you only did this, make it longer, make it shorter, include these subjects, topics, then I would definitely tune in. Then I would share it with a friend. Just again, take another minute, please. This is my ask of you. And share those ideas. I'll give you another minute to do that, and then we'll call it a day. And it's really been an honor and a pleasure to do this as people are leaving those comments. Again, I want to remind you that hopefully I'm modeling in my life and in my work and in my living, and even in this example, as I said before, doing the real work that we know is necessary, the inner work, the outer work, almost always will not be comfortable initially. And once it gets comfortable, that means there's a newer or deeper work to do. So we have to be comfortable with uncomfortableness, right? And we got to let go of that one big story, which is when this, then I. If only this, then I. Like I said, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I've had all kinds of reasons not to, and I was waiting for it to be right, to be perfect. And yeah, it's been a busy life these days. And I'm not saying you should do everything, but increasingly for me, this new chapter for my life is about moving towards the thought leadership, the media, And but more specifically for all of you, what am I really for? Right? What's a human for? What am I really for? Wasn't that a song Billie Eilish won the Academy Award for in Barbie? What am I made for? Something like that. So yeah, like what am I really made for? And increasingly, this goes back to the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. You cannot be yourself unless you know yourself. And if you're not knowing yourself or being yourself, something is knowing you better than you, and it's making you be something you're not. And if you're being something against your true nature, you're on your own. You're a branch cut off from the tree that withers and dies. You are literally on your own. Think about it. Nature can never grow an apple seed into an orange tree. And nature, call it God, can never grow you into something you're not. So to the extent that you're being something you're not, to that extent, you're a house divided, you're cut off, you're in the wrong story, brother and sister, and you're going to suffer and struggle. So this is about seeing there's a newer, truer story trying to emerge in the world. The world has been trying to be, in so many ways where it's suffering and struggling, it's trying to be what it's not meant to be. And in the ways that we are, it's because we're trying to be what we're not meant to be, or we're avoiding and resisting what we are meant to be. All of this connects. There's a newer, truer story emerging in you. I hope you'll tune in weekly. Go to my website, derekrydall.com, get the free trainings, click on the trainings here in YouTube, get the free trainings. You can go to my podcast, Emergence, get the free talks and trainings. I give away 98% of everything for free. And get the book, A Whole New Human. It really is a good book. I have to say so for myself. And then go to my site, opt in with the information that you got it, and get the free AI tool, or a couple tools, multiple tools. And just take some time this week between now and the next time to go through those questions, to question a story in the world, to question something that's triggering you, to question a challenge, and to find the story underneath it, and then to ask, what is the real meaning of this? What is trying to emerge by means of this? What would it look like on the other side of this? Who would I be on the other side of this? And how can I start being that, living from that new story, and even looking for that new outcome today? I love and appreciate you all. And until next time, what are we going to do? If Yanya was here, she would be saying it out loud. Live authentically, love unconditionally, and follow your destiny. And I'll send us out with a little bit of music from the beginning.
It's time that we all wake up. What's in between us will redeem us. When we beat it with love. We can't deny. When we look at each other's eyes, then we see. We're not so different.
This is called Heaven to Earth.
This is our moment. This is why we've come together. We are the ones who we've been waiting for. We can feel to we can feel everything that we've been through. Everyone has words. We can make the world that works for me and you. On earth, we can bring this is our moment. This is why we come together. We are the ones who we've been waiting for. We can bring heaven. We can bring it to we can bring it. We can bring it to we can bring it now.
Take care, everybody.